I'm really looking forward to this. Welcome to Raising the Bar, my podcast. Thanks for coming on, firstly.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I think we've been like ships in the
Yes,
night, haven't we, John? But we finally made
yeah,
it.
we
So,
finally
no, I'm
did
pleased to be
it.
here. So I'm Carly Spell, LLB Honours. I am a lawyer. I didn't go on to be a practicing solicitor, regardless of what some people have said, and I've never said that. I went on to be a practicing solicitor, but I didn't complete it. So some of you may know me. I run a site called Dark Matters. It's Darkmatters.contact. Those are my details if people want to get hold of me. We've just set up a new Facebook page. I've been a bit slack on the social media, but again, I'm sure John will put the links
Mm,
below. So, because obviously Dark Matters is gated, so it's 11 a month to join, but there's remedy in there. We discharge debt. We do all the esoteric, we do lives, we do all kinds of things, and
mm.
we've got a lot of partners about to come in and join us there. So that's just that's who I am. That's my plug. I've been awake for about 20 years, and certainly awake to
Mm.
the shit show.
Yeah, that's a good way of describing it.
Am I allowed to say shit? I just
Yes.
did twice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they say you can take the girl out of Bolton, but yeah. So yeah, I one of my passions is I love the law. I love understanding the law. I love to understand the veil of legal, and veil is evil, twisted around. This is the veil that is between or betwixt our conscious and our subconscious minds. So I do this talk. I just this is the one that I did at the Shine seminars, called "Lifting the Veil of Legalese," because it the journey of the law, certainly for me, is the journey of the spirit. So when we understand how this system works, and it is a dark system, which is, people say, well, why do you call your site the Dark Matters? Because, I said, because we can't, when you've kind of done the inner work, as everyone's saying,
Mm.
when you do the inner work,
Yeah.
it's a case of knowing, for me, about that balance, that middle way. It's in a lot of occult traditions and, esoteric avenues. That's what it is. It's floating above that duality reality cosmic chessboard for me. I'm not farting rainbows out my bottom, but I've been through my shadow side, hugged it, embraced it, and yeah, it's the middle way. So that's where the dark matters comes from, apart from me getting into like quantum event horizons and varying things. You'd have to come and join us for all that. So yeah, so this is about etymology. So when, as I say, it's mainly to do with all roads leading to Rome ultimately in relation to the legal system. The legal system is the Roman satanic civil system. So this is where ultimately, you know, Caesar went underground and became pope. I'm no major historian, but that's just like that's a summary. So when we look at the veil of legalese and the spell of language, as I say, if the Vatican is the beast, then its language is the beast system. I'm called Kali, which I know I get a lot of stick for, which is the goddess of destruction and time. But I was a yoga teacher before all this started. I got my law degree and I knew about the system, but nobody wanted to hear it. I was saying, about galactics and all kinds of stuff, and people just thought I was nuts, John. Like, I was like, as soon as the lockdown hit, I was like, this is it. They're going for it. I knew what it
Yeah.
was. And I thought I was awake until, wow, the last 4 years is just, wow, it's just been, and all the shadow work, man, as we say.
I actually think it's been good. I think the last 3 years there were certain
Yeah.
things that I had blind spots with, and now I'm totally awake to those now. So on a larger cosmic level. I actually think that it's been good for me. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I suppose one of my passions is again this, this veil of legalese, and I know you've seen this talk that I've done.
Mm.
I've added stuff to it
Yeah.
since, but I did it again at the Shine seminars, quite maybe a couple of years ago now, because I just soon as the lockdown kind of started to lift, and even before then, I went putting affidavit workshops on. I was teaching people about how to use, because we're in commerce, that's what we're in, how to use commercial processes to rebut. Because in the system relies on presumptions, assumptions, tacit acquiescence, and hearsay,
Mm.
and that's what it relies on. Basically, it relies on nonsense. And until you rebut that, these trusts, these
Mm.
construed trusts, sorry, rather, they'll stand until you do something about it. And again, we don't really ultimately, I think that's come up.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't really want to battle the system. It's a commercial maxim. He who leaves the battlefield first loses by default. But what I find is you don't want to fight them. This is why discharge, offset, and knowing that you're a beneficiary of these trusts is the correct way to play the game, really, that we've learned the hard way in many ways, or certainly me. So, like we were saying before we kind of came on the screen, I have a very spiritual side to the law as well as the facts of it, but you can't not see it. Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And the system, it works in this way, and that's a fact. It's their language, it's their code. You don't have to believe it, but they most certainly do. And that's how it works. And as we know, words have sound, frequency, and vibration. So Kali, spell. Kali was from my yoga business. There's nothing nefarious about the Kali spell name or how it came about. I'd just been kicked off Facebook enough times. I had to come up with something new. And obviously my love of etymology, I picked the spell and it stuck like muck. In the beginning was the word in Genesis, and I'll use a lot of scripture terms. Scripture is your script. It's a quantum code. It was the first technical legal document, basically, and as we know, Bible basic instructions before leaving Earth. So the Bible itself, when it was run through a quantum computer, can predict the future as well. There's people have a look at that in their own time. As I say, don't listen to me. That's how we all got into this mess. You have the power. You are the one that you've been waiting for. I just, this is my journey. If people want to come and join me on it for a little bit, then, I just like to talk about it. So we say in the beginning was the word, and that's what it says in scripture in Genesis. And Genesis stands for genetics. It stands for where we've come from. And again, it says in the beginning was the word, but ultimately in the beginning was thought. And, without kind of getting into kind of quantum mechanics, but it's thought that creates matter, not the other way around. So word in Greek is logos, and logos means source or controlling principle of the universe. And universe means one song, because we are in an octave, like a musical octave of existence. And again, we talk a lot about this at Dark Matters. So the creator manifested the world, or as atoms. Atom is Adam, as in Adam and Eve, atom, into the existence that we see, as we co-create. As I say, we're enslaved by our own free will, ultimately. They control consciousness, they hijack narratives, they give us third-party narratives to look at, and we just, they stand because we're so busy looking at them and we've forgotten who we are. So we've been enslaved by our own free will, as I say. So if we remember who we are and we step back and we start to observe rather than, just joining in and stirring at, then we can start to co-create something different. We are the fallen angels, ultimately, because we'll get into that later. I won't spoil that.
I've got so much, but I'm going to leave it because I'm making notes. All right, so you're going to get loads of questions in one go.
Interrupt me at any point.
Right.
So the creator manifested, obviously, this is where the law comes from. And if we look at sacred geometry and the effect of cymatics, low frequency cymatics creates a hex. The hex is the 6. 666 is the number of the beast. 666 is the number of man. And what that's code for is 666. 4 and 2 is 6. The answer to the meaning of the universe of life and everything. That is matter. And time condenses energy to a slow vibration. And we'll have a look at how they worship maritime terms, time, and all the Saturnian worship and whatnot. So as again, we were given dominion in Genesis of the law. And the law, for those that people don't know, is the land, the air, and the water. And we were given dominion of it, basically. And this is what was hijacked from us by the Roman civil satanic system. We are the beneficiaries of the earth. So here on this slide, we've got the land, which is the first trust from the creator. So we were given the land in perpetuity for the benefit of our children and our children's children. And the A for I always laugh when I say I get really old and So we are all heirs to our minor estates. So in trust law and in the system, it's all trusts and promises to pay. That's it. And we're in commerce. Equity is the higher body of law. We'll touch on that a little bit. Can't go into it too deeply, but so the herb is ecclesiastical or canon law, and the water obviously is admiralty and maritime law, which is the law of the sea, which obviously a lot of people will be aware of. So again, they worship Saturn, and Saturn to the system is this lower lead frequency. So this is matter condensed by time. So we're all just like Tesla said, like words are. This is the science. We're energy, aren't we? We're just energy condensed to a slow vibration, and that energy condensed to a slow vibration is condensed by time.
Right.
And why? Because time gives matter legitimacy. So we wouldn't realize that we're here. So I'll get into it a little bit, but the elites they worship time. The coronation of the king recently, it's called the Arcana of Time, and
Right.
all those rituals are about time because they are holding time. Because what
Yes.
they want to do is they want to be the overlords of matter. They want to live forever. They want immortality over us, and they've held these occult secrets and this esoteric knowledge, and they've held it to control us and to keep us reincarnating in a bit of a reincarnative time loop ultimately. And this is this Saturn worship.
Yeah, because it's Chronos, isn't
Bear
it?
with
Like
me.
it's Chronos. It's Saturn's also
That,
Chronos, isn't it?
yes,
And that's
exactly.
like
So
where we get
Father Chronos.
chronology from. Yeah, time. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And this is the archons. So we're talking like Anunnaki, we're talking about archons that were created allegedly. I mean, who knows about that? Again, these are
Mm.
stories and constructs. Well, this is where you get archons from, archaeology, the Ark of the Covenant, architect, and this is the dome. This is the flat earth. The earth is us, I think. I think that's,
Mm.
it's our minds. And what we want, and this is what alchemy is, and you can get into alchemical astrology, you can get into and it's so interesting. I'm no expert. I definitely float above the surface of it. But that's this transmutation of the spirit, and for me, that's the lifting of this veil. Because before the veil came down, it would have all been Edenic,
Mm.
as far as I kind of am aware from my studies. And we chose the veil. This is this story of Adam and Eve in the garden and the fruit, even though an apple's never even mentioned in scripture. And this is the fall of man. And I believe it's this betwixt of our conscious and subconscious minds. And when we kind of reconnect those, then we're starting to understand who we truly are, if that makes sense. So yeah, again, for me, the veil is evil. That's what those, it's wordplay as much as etymology for me. Now I get a bit of stick about this, but there's
Yeah.
anagrams, there's all kinds of different things that they do with language. And when you kind of decode that code, then we're really into something interesting. So the
Yeah.
veil is evil. That's the veil that came down between the conscious and the subconscious minds. And ultimately, I believe, but there's a lie in belief, so don't believe me,
Yeah.
that we've been choosing this ever since ultimately. So the roots of etymology in the veil of legalese are akin to the veil that was brought down upon the earth to hide our true being. This is represented by the veil that exists between our conscious and our subconscious minds. And this is represented by the dual nature of the universe, which is why we get chessboards black and white. This is why, Masonic
Mm.
floors are black and white. It represents that duality. And I know we were talking about this earlier, John.
Mm.
I'm not all light and rainbows. I mean, I'm not. I mean, I'm pure of heart.
Mm.
But unless we kind of go and look at our shadow sides and our demons, and it's interesting if we are in this matrix that a demon, DAEMON, is a background, a program that runs in the background of a computer that is the computer's almost like unaware of to that degree. So I think we have to face the collective shadow as much as we have our own, inner work and demons. But I'm also not somebody who goes in for the new age woo-woo deception either. And I think that's something that takes our power away from us as well. That's just a side
Absolutely.
note.
Yeah. Can I ask also just a quick one? When you say legalese, is that the same as maritime law? And is it the same as Black's law?
Yes. Yeah, sorry, I should kind of for those that don't know. So legalese, it looks like English, writes like English, but it's not English. It's the language of the bar society. So legalese is, and I'll touch on it on the next slides, but yeah, it's Black's law, and black is coloured, and coloured in legalese means counterfeit. So basically, legalese is the bogus meanings being represented or represented to us as we read it as English, but it's not. So this is where we got a lot of the fakery, the trickery, and the deception on documents. You know, a lawful document should be a single skin document. Now, if you look at a lot of your loan agreements, if you look at a lot of your um uh, any kind of public liability, like a water bill or a council tax bill, you'll notice that a lot of things are in boxes within that skin, which means that's not on the page. It's called the four corner rule. One, two, three, four. So a lawful document will be a single skin document. You can guarantee a legal document
Mm.
will have boxes on it. You'll have signed in a box, which means it's not on the page. So, you know, and again, if you've got two or more different grammatical styles on one document, that's a fraudulent document. They're not allowed to do that. But again, if we, in our ignorance, if we join in, it's not really fraud because ignorance is no defense of the law.
Mm.
But when we do become aware of it and we start to take that back, then fraud vitiates all. It's
Mm.
all a con, John. It's all, you know, even
Mm.
like I say, you know, even the common law, common comes from the Latin municipal, which means to burden. So really, even the common laws, again, it's just another construct of the Roman Satanic civil system. We are free men and women, and free men and women you are, as you know, Braveheart would say. We're
Mm.
all we're all in. I don't want to say entitled because titles mean pieces of paper generally, but for ease, we're all entitled to, you know, if we're not causing harm, injury, or loss. Actually, under our constitution, and we do have one, we're entitled to 5 acres of land each and to be able to build a home from the earth's resources with our sweat equity. But this is taken from us.
Mm.
We give up our inalienable rights, you know, via the registration of the. Well, it's not the child, it's not the baby. A baby is born, a baby is living, but
Mm.
they turn us into these pieces of paper. And in our ignorance, you know, it's all fraud really from the outset,
Yeah.
ultimately, because intention to set up these trusts, because your birth certificate is a bond, it's a trust in itself, but that's the deception, and it stays until it's rebutted. It's presumed. It's a presumption of the Roman civil system.
Isn't the constitution? I was asking Pete about that, but because yeah, there is a constitution in this country that a lot of people don't realize. But isn't that a construct in
Yeah.
itself? And we shouldn't be relying on that either.
Yeah, it's all constructs. I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately for me, I love the decode, and I love to kind of
Mm.
explain how the system works. I love to provide remedy as much as I
Yeah.
can. Like I
Yeah.
always say, I don't have the answers to everything. I mean, that's what Dark Matters is about ultimately. And we're going to be interviewing Pete for the podcast as well soon. And hopefully he'll
Mm.
come and have a space in Dark Matters. We've got people who can set up trust in Dark Matters. And we do lives in there. There's all the documents and templates for free. And well, you know, once you've joined as a member, there's a lot going on in there. And we're building it every day. But ultimately, you know, you can create this vanguard or this defense, as I say, to the system. And it's good to, you know, it gets you to know who you are, because when you're breaking down the legalese, when you're breaking, it's dark. The language is Baalism, ultimately. It's to do with this worship of
Mm.
Moloch and Baal and, you know, Saturn, Satan, Set. They are overlording this over us. They've taken what is rightfully ours. Because do you remember at the beginning when I said the
Mm.
first trust was from the creator and that we are beneficiaries of that trust? And the clues in the title, as I say, you know, if you're the beneficiary, you should be benefiting. And beneficiaries don't pay. And they've got us,
Mm.
basically, the Vatican came along with something called the Unum Sanctum in 1302, just simply, and basically said, right, we own all this and you're going to pay us to use it. And that's
Mm.
it, because everything is free. Water, you know, there's two things of worth, as I say, and that's the earth's resources and our sweat equity. Everything comes from that. So who built the bridges? We did. Who built the buildings? We did. Who
Mm.
cleans the water? Well, we know what's in the water, but you know, just read.
Yeah.
We do it, you know, and as I say, we live in a utopia without the utopia. You know, money has no no fiat currency. I shouldn't say money, but fiat in legalese means fake. That's a Black's Law, you know, definition.
Mm.
You know, it has no value. So it's just confidence, faith, and belief. I might as well just pass this glasses case to you, John, and say, yeah, can you get me my morning cup of coffee? It's got as much value as, you know, it's not backed by anything. It's not backed by
Mm.
a tangible asset like gold or silver anymore.
Yeah.
And we don't get into the birth certificate too much because again, that's another. I'm sure Pete kind of covered
Yeah.
it and
Mm.
million people, but we have a credit account. We're all trust fund babies, keeping it very simply.
Mm.
And we are the stock that are traded on the stock market, you know, and the bond is the, you know, the share certificate. So we've tracked a few recently with the work that we're doing with QSIP numbers and varying things, to try and keep all that in the private. If people are interested in that, come and find me. But one guy's he actually watched, we watched the birth bonds mature, and one went from like 9 million to 90 million in a few months.
Wow.
We can't begin to fathom the amount of asset stripping that kind of goes on, from that system, and in our ignorance, which is why they send us to school and they brainwash us and they program us. Get your driving license, all commercial terms. Driving's a commercial term, license is a commercial term. They're constantly keeping us in commerce when really we're living men and women on the land, and actually our bodies are the land, which is why they decapitate us on passports, so that we've just got our heads, because they're taking our body from us, and then they're taking our souls. So, but again, they're not. They are in their system, and in their system, and it is just a game. And I don't mean to say that flippantly, because I do understand that it affects people in a myriad of awful ways. But this is what I try and do. This is about this, trying to give this empowerment back to people, to understand how that birth bond works, to understand that it is a trust, to understand that you are the beneficiary of that trust. And actually, the legal fiction is the one who has the higher claim in that effect. But you have to rearrange those trust titles. A courtroom is a trust. The judge there is acting as what we call an executor de son tort. He is meddling in the trust affairs of another. They're making themselves the beneficiary, exactly, who benefits from your trust fund, whilst you become the trustee. And the trustee, for those that don't know, has what we call the fiduciary capacity to pay. Now, if you've got the fiduciary capacity to pay, then you better cough up. And if you go into a courtroom, it's guilty or not guilty. And guilty comes from the word gilder. Yeah. So it's you're admitting a debt, or, you're saying that, you say you won't pay or you will pay. And that's ultimately what a courtroom is, or an administrative court, the lower courts. It's about this, it's about revenue.
And
And they're all complicit in it.
And it's about maritime law. So it's about being on law of the seas, right? So you're off land. You're you're in a ship.
Yeah.
That's why you're worship, right? And all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So they love the ships. So yeah, basically, if you're in a courtroom, this is where the term standing comes from. This is like how you have the soles of the feet. So if you've got a sole of the foot and your soul is connected to the land, well, that's real. We're on Albion. That this land would have been called Albion before. Yeah, it was a different jurisdiction, like a matrix, like a fiction, of maritime jurisdiction was placed upon it and placed upon you. So again, it becomes this: we're enslaved by our own free will again, ultimately. But again, when your mother registers or registers you, regis means of the king, then she signs over her power of attorney. That's what's going on there. And then they actually are registering the placenta. They're not registering a baby is then birthed into maritime jurisdiction. Now, what that birth, and there's a guy called Carly will talk about, and he's in Dark Matters about the birth certificate in a far better, deeper way than I ever do. But ultimately, what you've got happening there is that bond, that share certificate is then sold to the private bank of the nation, which is for us the Bank of England, and that's a private bank. That's a Rothschild's own bank, so it's nothing to do with helping the people of England. Trust me. Where that bond matures for 7 years, and if you don't claim your estate by 7 years, many of you probably viewers know this, then you were classed as lost at sea, and you haven't declared your estate. Now, then that bond matures. They actually issue a maritime lien on what's classed as the slave child, because they can't take the actual child, then they take the bond, and then that bond matures depending on what it is you do in your life, whether you go to university or whether you get married. Your stock goes up, and they attach different share numbers, which is called QSIP numbers ultimately. And the stock, that's what the stock market is. You are the stock. They call us the cattle or the guayim, and they trade us. The elites trade us, and they don't want you to know that these trusts are in operation. I mean, ultimately as well, because when they removed the gold standard, without going again too deep, this was back in the 1930s, actually probably way before then. We were given these credit accounts. We were given these. Something's going on behind me.
What's that?
So,
Where's that noise coming from?
so and I'm going, hello. So yeah, so basically we were given these credit accounts of which we were supposed to use as beneficiaries to discharge liabilities. So your gas, your water, your electric, these are what we call public liabilities.
Yeah.
And liability just means the ability to be lied to. And because we don't know who we are, because we're not discharging and we're not offsetting as we should do via the Bills of Exchange Act. Ultimately, this is nothing. We're not doing anything wacky over at Dispelling Debt or at Dark Matters. We're using their own rules against them. So we're just remembering who we are now. They don't. The bankers. It's like I said, be the banker, but you try telling the bankers that they don't want the plebs and the proles starting to understand how banking works ultimately. And as I say to people, it's trust law and banking. And that's the only meme that I've managed to get it down to. In the end, we were taking out people's meters lawfully, but they're just ignoring it and they're turning up and they're doing it anyway. I hate to kind of, bust people's bubbles, but it's literally lawless out there. These are just private corporations. They've only got a cloak of government. There's a doctrine called the Clearfield Doctrine, and under this doctrine it says if a government, it was a case called the Clearfield case, but it became a doctrine. If a government's incorporated, then it loses all cloak of authority, and everything on this planet or planet a vessel in the sea of space, as the Vatican call it, we own it. You'll pay us to use it. Remember, then it comes under the bracket of commerce. And that's what we're in, contract and commerce. So, and all these companies, they've dissolved to the crown, and the crown really is the Vatican. So it's like the Wild West out there, like ultimately at the moment. So what we've kind of come to is the fact that, why battle them, settle, offset, discharge. And that's what we were always meant to do anyway, because and if you want to start getting into rearranging the trust and dissolving the trust, well, that's a project number 2 that we're on to, but that's another story. But again, I try and keep the law stuff kind of under the radar in the private, which is where it's supposed to be. Because if you start shouting about this kind of stuff, and that's why I say, we'll talk about all this stuff. If you want the other stuff, we do the private Zooms. Come and see us. It's that's what we're doing. It's like with debt collectors. They bought the debt. They can't validate the claim in simple terms. So all I have to do is get them in commercial default and we win. So I've done 80 grand worth of debt in the last 2 months.
Wow.
That's taken a lot of burden off people, and I'm very passionate about that. I love debt.
I love it now. Yeah. Got a different perspective on it, a different mindset on it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's debt slavery. We were always slaves. If you check our history, we've always been slaves. But it's like what David Icke says, give them a prison that they can't see, taste, touch, hear, or smell. And that's what we got in the end, because, slaves can rebel. Make them clothe, house, and feed themselves. Why should the slave owner even pay for that? Give them the illusion of freedom, and they have nothing to kind of, it's the Matrix in that effect.
Give them
But
circus.
it's just a simple.
Give them circus and bread as well, and then they will never rebel. So that's also part of it.
And that's. And has that changed really? If we look up, like one of my favorite films, Gladiator, has it really changed until a slave decides to, take on a king or whatever the line is? That's ultimately what we're in.
Yeah.
And, that is about being sovereign and being able to stand up. But, I can aid and assist people, but it's like what I said to people, you want to really be able to do this yourself, because if you've got to get someone to do it for you, then you are, no, I don't mean it like that dramatically, but, I have this big theory, and this might upset a few people, but, this Saint Germain Trust that they're going to do potentially the debt forgiveness with, after they've done the fake alien invasion, John, I'm waiting for that one.
God, yeah, I predicted that a few years ago. That was obvious, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh, it's coming now, isn't it? It's starting to leak out. I'm like, yes, I'm waiting for this one. But again, what they'll do is they'll go, oh my God, look at all this, satanic stuff that you've all been labouring under. Oh, wow. And then they'll do debt forgiveness. But again, it'll be just sign here. And mark my words, for those that have eyes to see, if you're going to sign anything for anything, be careful, because your signature is the value. And it's your signature that will hold you in contract. And that may be with an angel, but angels are something else. We'll get into that. That's the Elohim. But it may be with the devil. It may be with anybody. But why should you do anything? Why do you need anybody to offer you anything? You are the power. You're the creator. I'm going to make you work for me. You know what I mean? And that's the mindset that we kind of need to get to, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, back to the legalese. Once you start to understand legalese and you just understand some basics of it, it literally is the biggest trick on our consciousness that's been, it is a spell. It's a dark spell. It's spelling, like you say, an entrance isn't it, to entrance. When you are being summoned before a high priest of Baal, in a private court oration, in a dead speak, the dead fiction, as I say, you are already dead. You are in the land of the dead. You are speaking the language of the dead. And it goes very deep. It's very dark and it's very deep. But in that darkness is the light. And that's why, the dark matters, as I always bang on, because people go, why can't you have that? She's darker. It's like, she's a shill. She's a demon. No, no. No, 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 I'm not. But you've got to we got to stare into that scrying mirror really to kind of pull out the answers and bring it to the light. So if you're not going to dive into the dark and you just want to skip around with, like, say, flying your rainbow flag, then there's a problem there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh no, don't listen to me.
Yeah. That's why you said it's about integrating the poles, right? That was what that kind of last slide was about.
Yeah, definitely. And we did a great interview with Jim McCarty from the Law of One, and he spoke about, if something goes to an extreme,
Yeah.
then think of its polar opposite and then find the pivot.
Yes.
And if you could stay on that pivotal point, pivot, say that when you had a wine, pivotal point,
Yeah.
then why I try to do that. I don't always succeed. We can be angry. We're all taught that we shouldn't be angry, or don't be this, don't be that. Well, no, you can be everything. Be everything at all times, And that's that kind of archetype of the tarot, embody them all. When you do that, then you're starting to see, imagination. Shion, Asian is the form of magic. I is cancelled out in quantum. So, imagination is the form of magic. And we're creating this again, which is why it's so important for them to hijack our consciousness and to give us third-party scripts, your script, scripture, narratives all the time. So we're constantly looking over here when really we should be looking in it.
Yeah, author's authority. There's yeah.
Yes, yeah, to authority. The writers, as Angie Hinks says, she's one of my favourite writers, and I'll always give her a nod because she writes about this dream state. You were saying about maritime law and shipping and relationship, craftsmanship, relationship, and there's a slide on that, so I'm skipping ahead. But the ship is represented by this deep state of our subconscious, which is. Do you see that fake story of the billionaires, like a big distraction? Was it while Hunter Biden's laptop case was going on or something like that? And they were like, "Oh, there's these billionaires and they're stuck in a submarine."
Oh yeah, of course,
and again. Yeah, this was a distraction, but it's also an allegory for our subconscious mind. So when you start to understand the dream state and theta waves and delta waves and how they've controlled us with frequency and words, because words have sounds and music, and we're the zombies, aren't we? We're the Walking Dead, and they're the vampires, which is why the vampire films are so popular. It's always hidden in plain sight, isn't it?
Yeah.
Chronos, like you said, John, bang on. Father Chronos, Father Time, it's Saturn, and Chrome is, that's where you get adrenochrome, you get Google Chrome, it's Chronos. So again, it's all in our language and it's in front of us every day, but once you've seen it. So again, back to legalese. So things like mandatory. I used to say to people back in the day, well, what's a mandate? Isn't that two men going for a curry in a few beers? Mandates don't exist. So other than in that realm, so when legislation, and again, legislation isn't law, it's just given the force of law by the consent of the governed. The keyword's consent. Try telling the minions that, though, there's an army of people who thinks this is real. This has to be real, right? It's like what Bill Hicks says. I've got a lot invested in this ride. This has to be real. Well, no, it's not.
Do you know what? You actually said a Bill Hicks quote. You said something earlier. I was going to come in and you said, all matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration. There's no such thing as death. Life is a dream and we are the imagination of ourselves. Here's Tom with the weather. That's
it. Never mind part two, John. We've just killed it right there. That is literally the nature of all existence. Bill knew it, and I know it. You know it.
Yeah.
If we could just get everyone else to know it, though, it's like the wild card of Ra, as Jim says. Everybody could just kind of awaken in an instant. He says it's not probable, but it's
Mm.
possible.
Do you know
And
what's do you know do you know
apparently, I think quantumly we only need a 17% tip anyway.
do you know what's funny? When I did my graphic design degree at university about 15 years ago, in my final year, one of the things that I did is I took that quote by Bill Hicks and I engraved it into like
Yeah,
a gold, not gold, but it was like a bronze plaque. And I carved that exact quote.
yeah,
All
yeah.
matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration. And I etched it into this like plaque. And I remember, and they were like, "Why'd you do that?" Because I said that is the most perfect summary of what
Yeah.
life is about. And they just looked at me like I was some nutter, you know. But that was like really, that felt really big to me to do that. But yeah.
Well,
Anyway.
we get called weirdo. I usually get called weirdo, or but weird means the fated ones, the knowing,
Oh right.
So,
Take that.
it's interesting to do that because I used to have a picture that a friend who was a really good photographer took of me, and we all
Mm,
were clinking glasses, and there's a picture of
mm,
me. This is like, again at uni when we're all,
mm,
and he printed it off for me as a birthday present. I shouldn't say birthday, as a born day present, and he wrote that quote above it. And I had it at uni again up on my wall.
mm.
I had it for years actually, and in the end
Yeah.
it faded. But I had it for about 20 years probably. I only binned it recently, but same thing. That's
Mm,
it. That's
yeah.
all that it is. I said that's all that it is. But
Yeah.
it's like what I say, if you don't, it's neural pathways. If you don't ask the right questions, you're not going to understand the answer. We can stand here going, this is the answer, this is the answer, this is the answer. But unless people have asked the question, it's the question that drives us, as I say, and that's the quest. The
Mm,
quest is the question. But well, yeah, unfortunately, here we are,
here we are.
laboring under disbelief.
Yeah.
Mandatory. Well, this is boring now, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
know it
hang
feels
on a
too
minute.
boring. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
stuff mandatory. But anyway, but basically, this
Yeah.
all started by telling people that they had to wear a mask. You must wear a mask. You must
Yes.
close your business. You must do this. And
Yeah.
and one of the key things of legalese is must in Black's law means may. Always remember that one. It's always an offer of contract. So
Mm,
all the foundations of the legal system are counterfeit. They're all based on consent. And ultimately, what we're being forced into commerce, and any kind of force into anything is statutory rape in their system. We're all
mm,
being raped by commerce. So again, if we can, again, not fight the system, we don't need to, but discharge, set off, get rid of your mortgages, your credit cards, loans. Then you're releasing that debt slavery, and you're starting to
mm,
remember who you are as well. And again, Black's Law, look at it. It's a book of black magic. That's my Black's Law dictionary. That's a special fifth edition. And like I say, that's what black magic is. And it's a spell. Doesn't that look like a book of black magic?
it does. Yeah. So is that the same thing as
Yeah.
legal? So legalese, Black's law, and maritime law are all the same thing.
Well, maritime is a jurisdiction, but jurisdiction means law words. So you've got different jurisdictions ultimately. So you get one courtroom, but the judge can pull three separate jurisdictions in there. The first jurisdiction, the judge is the landlord. Second jurisdiction, he'll walk out the courtroom and come back in.
Mm,
Forgot as as the banker. I forgot that right. I might be getting that wrong from the top of my head.
mm,
And then the third jurisdiction, he comes back as a high priest of Baal. So he's in maritime commercial in the second jurisdiction. So it's the same court, but they can move jurisdictions just by leaving the room or work coming in with a different sash on. It's all trickery. But that's
mm,
maritime is a jurisdiction really. Legalese is the language of the bar society. So legalese is the deception of the bar. The bar is the bar mitzvah, and
mm,
it's Babel. They call it Babel. Legalese is Babel, which is Babylon. So it
mm.
comes from Babylon.
What?
So this black book of legalese
Mm,
of magic, ultimately, black magic, is um is literally that. It's
mm,
spell casting. Black in
mm,
legalese means coloured, and coloured means counterfeit. So fiat is fake. Fiat literally means fake, and that's what we're labelling under, a fake fractional reserve lending system. That's Black's Law sixth edition
mhm,
definition. And again, they purposely change the meanings in each edition. It's called obfuscation of the mind. So you might have the best dictionary definitions of legalese, or the best books are 1 to 5, but they purposefully change the meanings in each one every time. So you've got to read them interchangeably. It's all a con. As I always say, do you remember, you might remember this, John, and I always use this analogy, but do you remember David Bowie in Labyrinth? You know, and
Yeah,
he's got
yeah,
her
of
running
course.
around the labyrinth.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great
everything I've
movie.
done for
Again,
you.
showing our age.
Yeah, John. And what's he doing is, I have moved time and I have done it all for you. And in the end, what she
Mm,
turns round to him and she simply says, you know, I have fought my way here beyond the Goblin City to take back the child that you have stolen. And she can never remember the last line. The last line is always, you have no power over me.
mm,
Because even the legal system itself is a box, it's a construct, it's something they get us to stare at. It's Arthur Christian, and I did a really
mm,
good interview with a guy called Arthur Christian. And he calls it the cult of hoops, because that's ultimately what you're doing all the time, you know. But when we start to understand that this legalese is an illusion, you know, it's the creation of a private bar guild. And the bar society, you know, the legal society, to this day still
mm.
run the City of London. You're not going to get any justice there. You know, they're all part of it. And the City of London, again, is in a different jurisdiction to the rest of the country, as is
Yeah.
Washington, D.C., as is the Vatican City. And all roads lead to Rome. This is where they funnel all the profits and proceeds of war and criminal activity.
Mm,
It's like with all this child trafficking thing, and I know you've done a lot on this, John, like, because
mm.
your book looks amazing. And yeah, that sound of freedom, wow, that's an obfuscation of the mind, because we know that it goes way, way higher. And obviously, check out John's book. You know, we won't get into that now. You know,
Mm.
but it's I wrote a post about it on Facebook, and it was making it like it was just a bunch of Mexican guys smuggling children across the border, and that, you know, the
Yes.
United States, God forbid, didn't know anything about it. And it was like, oh my days, you know, a $38 billion industry in America alone, and they think that they don't know about it. You know, it's like it is
Yeah.
our global economy. They're running it, you know, it's the elites. And El comes
Yes.
from Elohim, which
Yeah.
means the powerful ones, the monsters of war. We'll get into what language means in and of itself, but again, it's just another con job. Like Mel Gibson's going to come and fix it all for us, isn't he? Or no,
Yeah.
the only people that are going to stop this and start co-creating something, it's us. The power's with us, but they want it to. Again, it's just externalizing it, and obviously not telling anywhere near what that the full truth of that is. Like,
Absolutely.
shocking.
Yeah.
But
Um,
you know, these systems are built to deceive us, all of it.
can I just ask then, you know, so okay, well, this could just be one for next time, but I want to just put a flag in it. How would you
Yeah.
go about taking this on then? Like, you know, do you just not turn up to court? Because the moment you walk into court, you're under their jurisdiction, so you've got no hope. So is there any
I've
way?
done it and failed, and it's not good. Yeah, you know, like I said before, presumptions, assumptions,
Mm,
tacit acquiescence, I should say, for those that don't know, is our silence, and hearsay. So the whole court is based on presumptions and assumptions, which means lies, really. They can make anything
mm,
up. So you will not, you know, if you're going to walk in as a slave and demand justice, you know, that's like a slave going, I don't like this. You
mm,
know, that's how they see it, you know. Because again, you're the trustee in that situation. You have to pay. There's a debt, a guilt, you know, a gilder to be paid, and you're the one who has to pay it.
mm,
Whilst the clerk of the court, the judge, and the solicitors, and to solicit is to prostitute. An attorney is to steal, means to attorn, to steal from one and give to another. So
mm,
they're all complicit in that system. The only person that isn't going to win in there is you. Very, very rarely. Like I say, the only way you ever want to walk into one of the courts, the maritime jurisdictions, is if you're going to rearrange that trust, if you're going to rearrange that title and call that trust out. Now, I've known some people who've done it
mm,
and won, and I've known some people who've failed, even though they had that knowledge, because they railroad. It's actually a proper legal term. It's called railroading you,
mm.
bullying you, really. Fear and
Yeah.
force. That's what the system relies on. Fear and force. Confidence, faith, and belief. Fear and force. Presumptions, assumptions. Your silence. And it's just bullies. You know, so that they are the bullies in the playground. You know, these
Mm,
families have just come, well, I don't think they've come up with it. Something's come up with this that's far darker. It's far too intricate. But they are feeding from these sources in the slavery of humanity, and I've been doing for, you know, a very long time. So
mm.
yeah.
So there is
So
so
again,
there is no way to really
yeah,
combat this. Then it's just you just have to kind of acquiesce to it, right?
Well, yeah, the main thing is, like I say, unless you've done something criminal, you don't really want to do anything other than begin to start to discharge the
Discharge.
debts. Because this is a debt slavery system. So
Mm,
rather than battle or fight the system, which is a loose energy of epic proportions, what you want to do really is, you want to learn to be the beneficiary. You want to learn that you
mm,
are a creditor, not a debtor.
yeah.
So your mortgage, as we know, like mortgage, mort means death, gage means pledge. So mortgages means death pledge. And when you sign that agreement under UCC 4A, I think it is, you actually create the credit. So you are the, that's you're actually signing a promissory note, a live promissory note. So you create the credit. They keep two sets of books and they leave you with a debt to repay, clues in the title on
Mm,
this side of the ledger, whilst we gift the credit to them, and then they securitize that promissory note.
mm,
It's called securitization without, delving too deep into that. Again, if you want to know more about this stuff, come and join us at Dark Matters. This is
mm.
what I'm passionate about. It's like I said, just getting people to know who they are and getting to free them from debt slavery ultimately.
Yeah. No, it's good stuff.
Yeah. And which leads nicely, John, into my
Mm,
next slide.
yeah,
How
sorry.
smooth a transition. Oh, okay. So Plato's allegory of the cave is ultimately what we're in, and I'll let people read this, they'll probably read it in their own time. But you know, people watching projected shadows on the wall. Do you remember the light coming in and the light refracting?
Mm,
This is what we're in. We're in an illusion, really, this
mm,
illusion of matter condensed by time. So, we're watching these shadows and we're given this reality, or we're projecting reality with our consciousness, which is again, we're in Plato's cave. We're thinking this is real, but it's also, people think that the Matrix is something outside of ourselves. I believe it's something that we are co-creating by the hijack of our consciousness, and they know this. And
mm.
this is why frequency weapons, things like that, music is so important to them. Again, it's like, if you go in a pub and you have a pint and they're playing some sad music and everybody's like, "Oh."
Yeah.
It's like just keeping everybody. I mean, I like a beer, so I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it's keeping everybody in this state, sex, drugs, again, there's nothing wrong with making love, but
Mm,
again, it's raising that vibration to these higher frequencies. And I don't say that in a hippy dippy way. I say that in a science way, really, more than
mm,
anything. But we've got so used to this cave and these flickers on the wall that we think this has to be real, right? It's back to that. Shut them up. We've got a lot invested in this, right? Shut him up.
yeah, exactly.
This is it's the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And again, I mentioned an alternative physicist called Dewey Larson, and the shadows on the wall are the illusions refracted from the light, just as the projector shines its light through the film, which
Mm,
creates the moving image on the screen. This is what we're in. Still frame to still frame, moment to moment. This gives us the illusion of movement. And this was something called reciprocal theory by an alternate physicist called Dewey Larson, who they also shut up. Bit of a Tesla kind of character.
mm,
So again, in the stillness of creation, in the darkness, in the space between us at the 0 point field, this is where the creator rests. And this is the infinite beat of the universe, which is why, I called the project, what we're doing, Dark Matters,
mm.
because, the light is the illusion, really. The creator rests in the dark, it's in meditation. Our pineal gland rests in the dark.
All right.
And our pineal glands are activated in many ways by trauma as well. And so, if you've had trauma when you were younger, you are the guardians of the galaxy. If you work through it and you're here to try and, enlighten and aid others, then as I say, yeah, you might not be fully functional in other ways, but you
Yeah.
are the guardians of the galaxy. But yeah, so, again, we kind of expose these counterfeit meanings. We start to see through the system, then the whole thing starts to crumble. It's David Bowie. It's like, it all falls down. And if you've not watched
Mm.
that film, you need to for the younger
Or
viewers
the
there.
or even going back further with the Wizard of Oz, where they just pull the curtain back and he's just like this little old man. It's like that, isn't it?
Boom. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's the yellow brick road, the ounces of gold. This is where it comes from. You are worth
Mm,
your weight in gold.
mm,
We would, if you weighed 6 ounces when you were born, you would have been backed by 6 ounces of gold. Now we have the International Monetary Fund, and we're all backed by about 1 million, or as was. It's probably gone up a little bit more, and that's what our bonds are backed by. These are our trust funds. So I say, you're all trust fund babies. You just don't know it. And
Mm,
they're accessing it all the time, and making us go get a job. Job means persecution in Hebrew, to
mm.
repay something that we created for the rest of our lives. And trust law works in 70-year cycles, which is why really they want us dead by 70 years, because they might not be able to access the main credit of the trust, but they can access the interest. So everyone who's ever died ever, they're still accessing,
That's
taking
what
the interest of the trust.
that's what Pete said. He said this is part of the
Yeah.
whole needlecraft thing. Is the Rothschild banks want us all dead because they make money from each closed account. Basically, it goes straight to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Boom.
Mm,
Yeah. And Pete's really good for like detail like that, practical detail. Whereas, I'll
mm.
go off on spiritual mad tangents like, but yeah, definitely that's exactly it, which
Mm,
is why we're going to get him in Dark Matters and all.
yeah.
But yeah, that's it. So, I said it on another interview, and it's a really good example of mortgages and how they work, because you've created the credit, then you have to go and repay something that you've already discharged at source anyway. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but just for ease. And then yeah, take Santander, which is one bank in one corner of the world, and between 1996 and 2016, 46 trillion just in mortgages. That's before they securitize it. So times that by 10. That's one bank in one time period in one corner of the world before securitization. Not debts, not loans, not taxes.
Mm,
And it's literally unfathomable.
mm,
And we're all scrapping around, and there's a big thing in the truth of being at the moment. You should give that for free. Why is she earning that? Yeah, and it's all this scarcity and lack that we've all been taught all our lives, and it really isn't like that. And that's like a big thing that I try and I want to educate anyway. That's not the word. It comes from adjudicate. It comes from all kinds of different words. But enlighten people to that fact. There's a wisdom that comes with being awake, and if you've not got it, God, they're all fighting between themselves. It's like tooth and
mm.
nail out there. They become the worst of the worst. They become the thing that they fight. It's Nietzsche, in it. Be careful when you fight the monsters, lest you become one, as I paraphrase.
Well, I wouldn't
That's what's
mind. I
occurring.
wouldn't mind it if Klaus and Bill Gates went at each other. I'd pay to see that.
Well, that's the other thing, isn't it, John? Don't take it all so seriously, but that comes when you don't
Yeah.
have a fear of death. That
Mm,
comes when you've pierced the veil. I don't have that fear of it. Now,
mm,
I'm not saying I've not had my fearful moments and run-ins with the system, because that's the might of that thing. And
mm,
be careful, when you're going to, choose your battles, as I say, pick your
mm,
battles. That's what they say in legal terms. But yeah, but once you kind of lose the fear, what can they do? Fear is the lowest vibrational state, as we know,
mm.
isn't it? And keep them poor, keep them sick, keep them stupid, keep them fearful. And if we can transcend that, then we can end the trance. Transcendence is ending this trance of time, as I say, but
Mm,
and language. And again, you look at the etymology of language on this slide, it means
mm,
the monsters of war that protect the noble ones. We've been English language is a construct, and it's something that we've been given to enslave ourselves, because we don't know what we're saying. Good morning, obvious one. It's the language of the dead. You
mm.
go to get a job, which means persecution, to earn. Well, you put ashes of the dead into an urn. You know,
Yeah.
citizen means slave. So you go to citizens' advice, you go and get slave advice. You break the whole thing down, and it's like, wow,
It's like
it just
every
keeps
word though, isn't
coming.
it? Because I mean, you said at the beginning, you said I've been awake, but even awake is something that you do after
Awake,
someone
yeah.
dies, isn't it? So,
Yeah,
you
boom.
have awake.
Awake.
So yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah.
lots of these words
So
that
yeah,
we're just trapped by them, aren't they? Even hello, you could say that's like hell, low,
hello. Yeah, yeah.
and it's just difficult to know when to when to know when you're using a word from freedom or being trapped by it, isn't it? Mm.
Yeah, and you'd never speak otherwise, would you? I mean,
Yeah,
we can be
yeah,
kind of cautious of it, but it's all we've got really. So at the
yeah,
moment, I think just
mm,
that awareness of it is key, because
yeah,
we can't stop talking. I think who we would have been here, we would have been a bit like avatars, like
mm,
collective talking with our collective yeah, what do I mean? Telepathically. That's what I
yes,
mean.
yes.
I think we'd have been talking telepathically, not verbally. Like I say, the English language is literally a construct that was given to us. Vowels, A, E, I, or U, they're not in Hebrew. They're not in, which is classed as the creator's language. But you've got
Mm,
original Jews, but what is Jewish? You can't be Jewish. Now,
mm,
Jewish we're kind of, without upsetting people again, it comes from, old Khazaria, from Zionist Jews, from Baalism. You would have got the original Jews, but again, all religion just means to hold back, to thwart, to bind. It comes from the Latin religiae. So all religions are constructs. Everything's narrative. Everything's a third party narrative to keep you thinking that, I'm a Jew, I'm a Christian. Well, Christian is, or Christianity, the anity means annuity, it means tax. So the Roman civil system created Christianity, and it's a tax. It's a false. It's not being a follower of Christ. Being a follower of Christ is the Christ consciousness, because Jesus Christ wasn't called Christ. It relates to a consciousness, and we can all be the Christ. We can all be the Christ. But that is the return of the King as well. That is the return of the Christ, and us all embodying that. And the return of the King, when man integrates his feminine, is the return of Christ. Because we're becoming holy. We're ending the trance of time, because they can't separate us. We don't have that divide as much. There's holy union. And we're returning back to the Garden of Eden. And the Garden of Eden is just us stopping projecting the Matrix, stopping joining in with their narratives, really, I think. But maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? You decide.
You decide. Yeah, there's so much there, isn't there? Yeah. Ending the trance of trans as well, maybe.
Oh, yeah, good one. Yeah. Well, that's it, isn't it? It's in everything. Like that one was really good, because of course, entrance. Someone told me another one the other day. There's so many. I mean, literally everything we're saying is just a nonsense, basically.
Absolutely, yeah.
Or non-science.
Yeah.
Break everything down. But I mean, these are some that we went over earlier. These are some of the obvious ones. Relationship, citizenship, craftsmanship, friendship, worship. The dock, as we know, is the vessel docked. So that's what we are. You get Hornsey-Wood's process. He docks his ship. You dock the ship. They can't use it. You take yourself out of their jurisdiction. It's a status correction process, basically, where you turn yourself into a limited company. The birth certificate, really, as we know, it's not a form of ID. It's crown property. But we were always meant to take it back and fill in the appropriate boxes and dock our ships so that they can't use them, and put ourselves back on the land. It's an interesting process, but again, it's a deep dive. We haven't got time to talk about that. But again, it's in Dark Matters, or see Carl as well at Truth Talks. He talks about that in detail. It's really cool, because basically, we're classed as these vessels in dry dock. And this is why we have a P in our passport. It means purser. So basically, a purser is a slave on a ship. And again, it's about kind of changing that status, and that's doable. You can change your passports to what is it? A company director, basically. So you can kind of do status correction changes, but it just depends how much of your existence and life you want to kind of give to it. Some people will say that, until you do the status correction change, then you will keep coming back into the time loop. And that's the game that we all kind of agree to kind of come and do, and that you have to do the status correction change. But I'm not too sure about that. I think we're so powerful. That's just another cult hoop that they want you to kind of jump through, really, because how time consuming is that? Whereas if we all just decided it's done, then it's kind of done, really. But let's see if we can ever get there.
also, not registering your child is with a birth certificate must be like the way to break the loop, I would have thought.
Yeah, again, people say that to me, and I would say that's like a spiritual choice. Really, it is. And if it was me, I mean, I've never had babies. I wouldn't. But like I said, the trust is created because we're all entitled to an equitable share. Yeah. So the bond is actually your equitable share of the earth and its resources. So the birth certificate, in effect, is actually an asset to you in many ways, if utilized correctly. If you know who you are, you should declare that trust, and then that trust is yours, But again, it takes a sovereignty of mind, because if everyone was accessing the trust and was awake, they came back from the dead, then I think we'd kind of have a little bit of hell on earth. This is something that needs to be accessed responsibly. For me, it's certainly more about discharging debt and public liabilities, rather than accessing the trust and going buying a Lamborghini and running off with the next door neighbour first class to Vegas. Or, however, if you're doing that responsibly in a sovereign manner, no harm, no injury, no loss. I might put my name down at. If I access my trust, I'm going to buy a yacht in the south of France. But quite selfishly, John, I thought, who's going to staff it if everyone's got their trusts? No, we don't want them all awake. I'm only mess. But it's like there's a level of responsibility that comes with it to be sovereign or sovereign or whatever you want to call it. You've got to act. You've got to be acting responsibly. You've got to be wise. You've got to. It's like Indiana Jones in the Last Crusade for me. You've got to be willing to go through all the tests and the trials to be able to and I think that ultimately is the game. As I say, once you decode the language, the monsters of war that protect the noble ones, because we're constantly, like we said, just dark spelling. We don't know what it is that we're doing. We don't have that awarity. I always say, is that even a word? I like it. I kind of slightly made it up, but yeah, you don't. So legalese, as we know, it might look like English, it might write like English, but it's not English. And as I say, if the Vatican is the beast system, then language, is certainly its main tool. So when we can kind of decode that and get to that, I know it says in scripture, and we talked about scripture. I'm not into organized religion. It's a code. It was the first technical legal document. So when we can kind of decode that, it says in it, learn the serpent tongue and use it against them. We can't. It's what we've got, isn't it? But certainly we can have awareness of what it is that that's being utilized for in kind of a black magic occult kind of way. And again, as I said, occult just means hidden. Energy is just energy, really. They just know what to do with it. These overlords of time, these Babylonian despotic dark wizards of time. To sound too dramatic.
No, but it's all coming up to the surface, though, isn't it? I can see it. It is. Like I'm noticing more people like yourself are coming forward and showing us the spells and breaking the spells. It's coming up to the surface, isn't it? Darren DOG is great for that. He's got loads of spells to do with sound, but there's also one to do with light, an actual place that you'd build something. It's a site, isn't it? Or you'd say, or it's a scene, SCENE. So it's a site or a scene. So there's vision. So there's some vision words there as well. But yeah, anyway, enough about my musings.
So again, when we're talking about that Roman civil system, because really Rome just went underground, Caesar became Pope, and this is something that I found out recently. I was actually a guy called I don't know if you've heard of him, John, but Bishop Larry Gators. I might stick him on my Dark Matters podcast wish list, actually. I might write his name down. And I went, oh my God, of course. So when we talk about, being a follower of Christ, or people are saying, especially in apocalyptic days that we're wandering or meandering through at the moment, there's a big difference in being Christian to a follower of Christ. So Jesus Christ wouldn't have been called Jesus Christ. He would have been called Yeshua, or whether you believe he was an actual physical man, a real character, or whether he's an archetype, you decide. But what is interesting as I deep dive this more is that Christian or Christianity, now an annuity is an annuity, and an annuity is a tax. So the Roman civil system turned followers of Christ. And the Christ for me is that Christ consciousness. Yeshua would have been what we call an adept, an ancient adept, or an Asen or a Cathar, which is why he went off to study in Egypt and varying things like that, because he was starting to, alchemize and understand, his true nature, perhaps come down with a particular mission, as we all do to a degree. So the followers of the Christ, or the Christ consciousness, and I think that's what the second coming of Christ is, and that's what being a follower of Christ is, to embody those principles of the Christ, and to operate in love, to operate in service to others, in compassion, with empathy, and it goes on. So under the UCC in legal terms, and the UCC is called the Uniform Commercial Code, and the UCC governs all commerce on the planet. Again, the Vatican had turned the plane of the earth, which is where we have our standing, and we put our soles of the sole of our foot on the land. They take that from us and turn the plane of the earth into a planet, into a planet. And they turned Christ into Christian so that they can tax it, because that's what Christianity is. It's Roman civil system. So again, the kingdom is within. That's what it says in scripture, for the kingdom is within. This is when you get studying astrotheology. There's a great guy actually called, what's he called? It'll come back to me in a minute. Theological neuroplasticity. We're changing those pathways in our minds. And I find out that church comes from the word Circe, meaning a Roman goddess who led others into her home to brainwash them. So that's what a church is. So all words and spells are called cursive, aren't they? Spelling is cursive, and curses are bonds.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's like, I was just like, wow. So it's just more and more of it. And, what's he called? It'll come to me, the guy's name I follow, who does some awesome stuff on, astrotheology. See his face. It'll come back.
Michael Sarian.
He's called. He was on Rise TV. Ethan.
Oh, I don't know then.
It's called Anyway, the series is called The Spirituality of the Law, and it's on Rise TV, and it's really worth watching. He's called Ethan. Can't remember his last name, but that's enough for me. It'll come back to me. I have had like a sieve. Seriously. It's for me. But yeah, no, I found that one. That one was really cool. So this slide, as we've all been talking about, cannibalism, Canaan and Abel, cannibal, all these stories kind of relate back to, again, if you take the Jews, you take it back to, real early scripture, the Zionists and these Baalists, they had to pick. They were given a choice to pick one of the three religions, which is obviously Muslim, Jew, follower of Christ, and they picked that they would be Jews, but they're not really real. They're not real kind of Jews of the Hebrew, which is why they say that it's Jewish. So again, you get Christianity, and you could be Jewish. But what's Jewish? You're either a Jew or you're not. So again, they made that choice because they were, Baal worshippers, and they were chose to pick one. So you get Old Khazaria, which is the Ukraine. Ukraine was Old Khazaria, and again, I always say I'm no historian. I'm a bit of a skim reader, really, of all this kind of stuff, and I pick bits out that I find relevant to the law and one thing and another. But the Ukraine, and we all know what's going on over in the Ukraine at the moment, was Canaan. And Canaan obviously was the origins of Baal worship and one thing and another. So Canada actually means this is Canaan as well.
Oh, right.
And all the names of different European countries all have kind of unusual, kind of dark, demonic links.
Is this connected to like the Sabbatean Frankists? Do you know about them?
Never heard of the Sabbatean Frankists, but it sounds extremely intriguing.
Okay, I won't kind of lead us off on a tangent there, but it's the idea that the religions were infiltrated by Satan worshippers, and you can look up Zabbatai Jevi was like the kind of the leader of that, and they kind of hid under the shield of Judaism. As a way to get in and then infiltrate from within like a Trojan horse, and they're known as the Sabbatean Frankists, and it connects with like the Freemasons and the Illuminati and stuff like that. I did a whole podcast with some guy on it, but I'm just wondering whether that's maybe connected, but it's Baal, Satan, kind of maybe in the same sort of thing.
No, well, I've never heard of it, but it sounds exactly right. I've studied scripture. Genesis is genetics, and when you understand that and is DNA, and we don't have junk DNA, and that we've been genetically modified, shall we say, throughout there are existences, and they've proved that scientifically, haven't they? They found certain genes that have been adapted and shut off, cut off, and various things. And Billy Carson does some really cool podcasts about that. If people know who Billy Carson is. Again, I skim it, really. I skim over it. Those are the experts. I'm hoping to get some of them maybe one day on Dark Matters. But yeah, when we can kind of like understand our origins, so it's that Prometheus thing, isn't it? Understanding like where we've come from, really, and who we are. That's like the biggest key to it. But yeah, that sounds absolutely right. I mean, Dave Murphy, allegedly Dave, I watched some of his videos, and he talks about a lot about this to do with how going back to like the true kind of Hebrew. And obviously Paul Wallace will talk about Hebrewism in relation to like paleo contact, and then you're going back to obviously Egypt, and then beyond that you're going back to ancient Sumer, and is it Eki and Enlil, and then even further of how basically that we've always had this kind of galactic contact. It's just been I think it was the Book of John, it's spoken about quite a lot, which was obviously removed from the main scriptures. And I watch quite a lot of, I just like nerding this stuff up, but like I say, I'm certainly no expert on it. But again, when we can kind of get back to that, really, like talking to Laura Eisenhower last week, she talks a lot about this. Her great grandfather, President David Dwight Eisenhower, was it Dwight David? Forgive me if I've got that wrong. He revealed a lot of this going on. The exopolitics with galactics, and again, I don't know. I've had some strange galactic experiences, and I do believe that. That's why I love the Law of One. That's and come and check the podcasts are out on Drake, Michigan on YouTube. They're all for free there. But we're doing the law series. That's a different thing. But yeah, I find it so interesting. Yeah. Is it real? Is it just more narratives that they gave us? Because we were talking to a guy called Arthur Christian and another guy we interviewed for my other podcast, Inverted Realities. And he's right. He was just saying, if you were just born onto these beautiful plains of, say, like, North America thousands of years ago, you wouldn't come out thinking, would you, think I need to go and cleanse my chakras, or I wonder if we got genetically modified in ancient Sumer like thousands of years ago. Have we always been a slave? You wouldn't kind of have these narratives in your head, would you? I mean, I know things have always, the narratives have always been told on cave walls and the rest of it. So, the cultures have always told stories, and that's how it gets passed down. The media, the word media comes from the Medeas, which were a tribe who basically were, adopted by the elites to kind of spread misinformation and to tell the narratives, the tales of the victors, and going back thousand years. That's where media comes from. So again, we've always spoken narratives, whether that's from a printing press to digital media now, which is why they want that control on social media. And as you've experienced, John, really
fact checked
swiftly. Fact check city, and when you've released your book, shutting down accounts and
yes,
shutting
I
them
know,
up.
shut him down.
So but yeah, it's absolutely interesting. And some of those names that I've Lucas, I knew I'd remember his name, the astrotheology guy, Ethan Lucas, he's called.
Right,
but if all that stuff interests you, certainly check out like Billy Carson, Paul Wallace. Ethan Lucas, like I say, does that awesome series on the spirituality of the law.
Oh,
that's and he studied scripture when he was younger, from being, he was brought up in a very can't think of the word, but brilliant stuff.
Well, you're doing some brilliant stuff here as well. It's the same sort of thing. It's the spirituality of like legalese and that kind of stuff, isn't it? Yeah.
I love debt as well.
I love debt. I love it.
I love getting rid of it. I tell you what I love. I love if someone comes to me like say 60, 70 grand's worth of debt that's around their neck, and you can just I'm not saying just get rid of it. It's not that easy, but you can get rid of it. Wow. That's a buzz, helping people in that way. I love it. It's great. But all this stuff, it just, if you're not trying to find out what existence is about and who you are at this point in history, then what are you doing? Or like fighting the good fight. Not that I like, or battling the good battle, as I said. I don't like fights, but battle. I like the word battle.
It's funny because I've got friends, and bless them, I love them and stuff, but they look at me that I'm, what am I doing? Like, why are you looking into all this stuff? Why are you interested in reality and what's going on, and like the control structures and all that sort of stuff? And then they're just like watching their football games and their circus and bread,
Football.
and they're laughing at me, and I'm kind of, I like dipping into
Exactly.
that for fun, but it's just a bit like,
Yeah. You don't,
they're watching like 11 men kick a bit of leather around a football field, and they're all day
yeah.
they're talking about it, and I'm kind of exploring all these different angles, and yet I'm the kind of the strange one. It's something a bit off there, isn't there?
It's mad.
Yeah.
They think, everyone's thought I was mad for the last 20 odd years, but guess what? Not am I anymore, because here it
Yeah.
is. And I just, I find that insanity. They might think we're mad, but what's that meme in it?
Mm.
The man telling the truth to the people living the lie is always going to be pushed out of society, or
Yeah.
dismissed and disparaged and belittled and discredited, and that because we look like the mad one, but no, it's
Yeah.
actually that inversion is that it's them. But yeah, like, oh God, it is, isn't it? It's give them circus and give them bread. We've always been slaves, so this constant division, and they just learned how to do it on paper because, again, I think I said it earlier, give them a prison that they cannot see, taste, hear, touch, or smell. We were always slaves, and then that was something to kind of move out against or rebel against, and Jesus came to pay the debt on the cross for our sins. What is a sin? A sin is a sine wave of time. We've just carried on paying the debt because we've not acknowledged who we are. We've not acknowledged that debt's already been paid and that we are the true beneficiaries of the earth. Because, like it says here on the Triple Crown of Baal, they took away our land, they took away our body, and they took our soul. I mean, they didn't.
Yeah.
But they did on paper, and they've presumed that, and that presumption stood. And that stood since the beginning of Rome, which is, again, it's Baal worship, it's Moloch worship, it's and government means mind control. If it be, I always think you'd think that would be enough, wouldn't you? Govern comes from
Yeah.
governare, the Latin,
Yeah.
to control and men's the mind. But still, no, that's not enough for some people. Banking's a complete falsehood. You think telling them that would be enough? No, that's not enough because it is.
Would you? Is it? Would
It's the
you?
fluoride stare, John.
Yeah, it's a fluoride set. Is it?
Oh, that from John, by the way. I can't take credit for that one.
Yeah, it's all right. You can have that one. I took it from a meme somewhere.
I'll have that one.
Would you say? Is this connected, or would you say that part of the trickery there to make us think as though we don't have rights to like land, body, and soul is by taking us from land into water through the narratives, through the language, through the spells, right?
Yeah, I think let's see what the next slide is. Oh yeah, something else. But yeah, absolutely. So we give up our inalienable rights for the benefits and privileges of the state, and therefore we come under their jurisdiction. And I said again earlier, but repetition is the mother. It's juris means law, and diction means words. So we just fall under their spells. We fall under their word spells. And we choose it. Ignorance is no defense of the law. So if we choose it by our own free will, now, all right, it's heavily manipulated. It's ultimately fraud. There's never any intention to set up these trusts. There never was. And we were always slaves. Then we were paper slaves and debt slaves. And it's always been that way, to kind of like fall under that rod. But yeah, certainly they took us off the land in simple terms, of which we are. We have these inalienable rights, and they put us onto the unholy maritime sea, as I say. So they took us off the land and put us into the shipping lanes. No one can confer a right on another, if we're going to really, deep dive it. Because I can't confer a right on you, John, just as you can't confer a right upon me. We're all equal under the law, and the law is the land, the air, and the water, of which we have dominion because the Creator gave us dominion in Genesis of the land, the air, and the water. Either through fear or force of these darker. I'm not saying that the people that did it, thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, but we know that there's something quite timeless and dark that is, filtering this stuff down, to these families and to, and that's what they do in it. It's the 12 tribes of Israel. Satan created the 12 tribes of Satan to mock the 12 tribes of Israel, and the 13th bloodline is the Merovingian, which is the bloodline of both, I believe. But and apparently that's the Antichrist.
Oh,
I mean, look, I'm from North Wales, not originally. Probably my accent isn't that Welsh, but Bolton. And
right.
they're flying that red flag of the dragon, and they'll tell me what they think it means. But the Queen said to Prince Charles, for you shall know your power by the seat of the dragon. This is Draco. This is old school Dracu. And but in everyone's ignorance, hey, Welsh flag, they're so proud of it, but they
Yeah.
don't know what it is that they're flying. Things like that. You
Mm,
try and tell a Welshman, well, I've been lynched a few times, but
yeah.
again, if they're not ready to hear the information, it's probably best I've learned not to kind of shove it in their faces. People who perhaps find me are way ahead of us. Perhaps nothing wrong against the Welsh. I've nothing against beautiful people, so I just get that
Yeah,
said,
exactly.
well. But again, we do it every day. I mean, look at this. This was outside the Colosseum. I'm not quite sure. I don't know if it's still there, but they certainly put it up for a while, and it was a big, massive statue of Moloch. So how many tourists were probably going sitting on its knee and having its photo took? I mean, the
Mm,
symbology on it, and we people don't know what they're looking at.
mm,
As I say here, in Hebrew, Baal means Lord. So the House of Lords is the
mm.
House of Baal.
Oh,
So
right.
again, they were the Saturnian robes in the House of Baal. They were the Egyptian headdress. That's what that is. And again, people are just looking at something and they have no idea what it is that they're looking at. So Moloch comes from the Phoenicians, and the Phoenicians obviously to do with language, phonetics, Phoenician. MLK, which refers to a type of sacrifice made to acquit a vow. And this deity required the death of babies to appease him. We know, again, with the work you're doing with John
Mm.
Wedger, I'll always remember that now. That's all come to light. These, royal hunting parties. Jim will fix it, wasn't it? They rubbed it in our face because
Yeah,
fixes high-end paedophile parties.
exactly.
So that was the last letter I'll write to Jim. I mean, he's not with us anymore, praise be.
Mm,
But yeah, again, they were rubbing it in our faces. The symbols were there. They're hidden in plain sight. They tell us all the time, but we just don't. We've been that dumbed down and brainwashed. We've forgotten how to read it. And like you said, Saturn time synonymous with Set. Cain in Blood Able is a crypt. Cannibal, it's a blood crypt. I was brought up a Roman Catholic, so they tell you to eat of the flesh and drink of the blood. So we all
mm,
go to church, which is when was a brainwashing house, and they get us all to chant this stuff and incant this stuff. Now
mm.
it says in scripture, do not eat of the flesh and do not drink of the blood. So in that inversion in that Roman civil church, which they can call it Roman Catholic, clues in the title, it's Roman. They tell you to eat of the flesh of the Christ. So it's called the
Mm.
transmutation, isn't it? We eat of the wafer as though it's the
Yeah,
flesh of Christ, and we drink of his blood.
yeah,
Anybody, that's cannibalism. That's a ritual that they're getting us to do to break the rules of the true creator. Like, don't eat each other, and the
yeah.
life is in the blood. So that's exactly what they get us to line up and do. And we all and people take the children there,
I
children
know, I
as
know. I
children.
remember. I remember when I was young, I refused to eat that little wafer thing, and my mum got really upset
We
with
said
me.
it, didn't we?
She's like crying and screaming at me, "Eat that, eat it!" I was like pretending to
Oh
eat it.
well.
I was like kind of going, you know.
It's like when you see in films, isn't it, when they're in a mental institution and they're, like in Terminator 2, is it like you hide the pill under your tongue?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like no, but
Not
yeah,
for
yeah,
me.
exactly. Because
Yeah,
I knew I couldn't stand going to church, but I was just kind of
mm,
dragged as you do. But there's something in your soul that just knows.
yeah,
And it was only recently that I kind of like, well, I'm saying recently, like a couple of years back, and I thought, oh crap, of course, the life is in the blood. Of course, they're getting you to do that satanic ritual. So again, you might be innocent and pure of heart. Well, all the better, if that's what's coming out of your mouth, whether you're aware of it or not. Because a friend of mine was saying, yeah, but it's also about your heart and what you're aware of, and of course that is a thing, but to them it's not in this realm,
mm,
because we know that if we think it and we're speaking it, we're speak and spell, we create it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
It's a twig. It's a terrible twig. But yeah, so again, this Saturn worship.
Yeah,
it's Novus Ordo Seclorum, which means, new world order or new order of the ages. And we know that we're coming into this new age of Aquarius, but they're trying to stop that because I think the new age of Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, which means it's going to be like an unveiling basically of all this darkness, which is what we're seeing. And I'm no astrologer, there's some amazing people that do all that kind of thing, but I keep my toe in the water. And this Novus Ordo Seclorum that we've been under, and they want this new world order, don't they? You will eat the bugs and be happy and all that. This is Saturn's reign, and Saturn's reign is linked to the new age. So again, they want a one world religion. They're going to offer debt forgiveness, all these things. As I say, be very careful what you sign up for, even if it's something that looks. It even says in scripture there'll be a false ascension. So don't fall for the false ascension, because again, if it's something that they are offering to you, if it's something that they say, just sign here, sign is sin, I would be very careful too. I think a lot of people think that, a microchip's going to be the mark of the beast, but it'll be something that you sign or something that you give over in relation to that, I think. And that's the new age. But again, this is the apocalypse and etymologically derived as the unveiling. So get your popcorn.
Get your popcorn ready. It's funny. I've said this before on other podcasts, but let's just say that we're moving into that new age and we're kind of on that, on that kind of transition point. It's as if the old epoch is trying to maintain. It knows it's losing its grip, so it's like its last hurrah. It's like it's throwing everything at us. It's like a cornered rat that it knows it's about to die, so it's like that last attack, and it feels like it's all coming out to the surface, and it has to for it to then be purged, and then we can move forward. But there's that kind of last hurrah of something that they're throwing everything at us in the kitchen sink, and that's why it's all coming out in the last few years. It's just amusing. I'm not committed to that, but it just feels intuitively what it feels like, whether it's right or wrong.
No, I think so. Again, astrologically speaking, it's the fall of Rome. That's what we're in. I think, and again, I can't remember the name of all the planets that lined up, and it's not happened since XXX. Again, not my arena really, but we're in the fall of Rome. So it's, it's like any kind of, like you say, rat on a sinking ship, in it, or any kind of cornered beast. It's going to try and do as much damage as it can and take you down with it. It's like Gandalf fighting the Balrog, isn't it? In the Mines of Moria.
More movies. I'm loving your movie references. They're genius.
Yeah, I love it. It's as we it's all there, isn't it, in the films? And Lord of the Rings. Lord means Baal. Rings is Saturn. So all these things that are. And the Matrix cleverly tying us in there to my next slide.
Here we go.
Even
Nicely
Neo. Nice segue. Neo was the robes of Saturn to enter the Matrix, doesn't he? They all wear them. So you get your Jesuit priests, your judges, your barristers, and even Neo. He doesn't wear them when he's outside the Matrix, when he's in Zion, or but he wears them to go in. Right, so it's a little bit of a clue, I think. And then here, like, we've got the Kaaba cube, again, cube worship. As I went to source and fell through timelessness, it was cubes. And I've got a really good video, and it's on YouTube, where it shows that you can make spheres from cubes. And I think that's kind of what a tesseract of time is, a cube. And if you've seen Interstellar, another film reference, it kind of explains how space, time, space works. And love is the only thing that can transcend time. So they worship cubes. The Greek cross, so crosses turn into cubes. The Kaaba cube, Tephilim on the head. They all bang it against
and
the
they
wall.
make us worship it, like, by accident, like, the graduation hats that you throw in the air after your degree. Also, I must mention this because I'm so glad you flashed that up. The bottom left-hand corner with that. When you unfold a cube, it forms a T, right? Okay, this is a musing that I've had, but I woke up in the middle of the night with this musing, right? If you take the word planet, okay, it's plane. We're on a plane, but then they stick the T on the end. I sometimes feel as though that's a manipulation of the word, because it's it has an effect on us that way by sticking that T on. It's like the cube worship of the plane. It's like the cube kind of coming into the plane that we're on. I don't know if that might also be some kind of deliberate
Oh
thing.
no,
You know, I
no,
don't
no,
know why we're called
absolutely.
planet. Maybe it should be plane, right? We live on the Earth plane, but we call it a planet.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that might be
The
something.
Vatican, when they declared that they owned everything on the planet,
Mm.
and you're going to pay us to use it. That was the Unum Sanctum of 1302, the first ever express trust deed. They called it a vessel in the sea of space. Now, they changed the plane of the earth to planet
Mm.
so that they could, it's like turning law into legal, or, law is only,
Yeah,
also, legislation is only given the force of law by the consent of the governed. It's only got the force of law by consent,
yeah,
which is contract, really. So to be able to rule us, they had to turn us into dead fictions, and they had to, turn the plane of the earth into a planet,
yes.
or
Okay, so you
planety.
thought that as well. I thought that was like a real like moment for me when I thought about that. But I did independently come up with that. So
No, no,
something
no, no,
going on
no,
there.
that's it.
Some positive
But yeah,
instinct,
bang
intuition
on.
going on there. Yeah. Oh, great.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so there's a few
that's
people that
and
have
that's
spotted
literally
that then. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They like I say, they call it a vessel in the sea of space, and they claimed it. So they're like, this is ours, and you're gonna have to pay us to use it. It's just basic schoolyard bully stuff, really.
Mm.
Just nicking your lunch money, and we handed over. Not that simple, I suppose, but
Mm.
yeah, certainly that's kind of what it represents. And
Mm.
like over here, these, the Star of David. Have a look into that if you're not quite sure what that is. This is why the Pope also wears the big fish hat, because it was the age of Pisces. Also put lots of paedophile symbols all over his nugget, and photos of old ancient Mexican alien or payload contact sites as well. I think we all know what the red shoes mean by now, and if you've not, maybe that's a deep dive you don't want to go down. But
Yes.
why the popes and cardinals all wear red leather shoes.
Mm.
And again, we're just we are starting to unfold all this information, and that's why these unfold like a solar cross.
Mm.
But these conversations are so important, because once people get this, that the whole thing falls down. It's no piece of paper is going to, like I said, tell you that you're a free man or woman or sovereign, or it's here. So when we get it here, the pieces of paper can help. Don't get me wrong, come and see us. If you've got a problem, we've got all our partners in there and whatnot. But
Mm.
yeah, that's not going to tell you you're free. You are free men and women, and free. What
Mm.
was it? Free men and women you are. What are you going to do with that freedom? I'm not even going down that film reference, but I think you'll get it.
Keep it going. Love
Would you give just one day to come back and tell our enemies? So
it.
again, yeah, and again, the Star of David. When we break this down, you take Israel. Israel is the geographic state, via the conscious state of Israel. So is Isis, which was the Egyptian goddess, also seen as the moon goddess. Ra was the
Mm.
Egyptian sun god. So this is why we have the Son of Man. This is why we have like Krishna. All these characters represent the sun. It's all sun worship ultimately. And El was came from, say, like, the Elohim. So you got Israel. That's what it kind of makes up to be biblically. In El, used in Bible terms, was Elohim, and the Elohim meant it was a plural term, which meant the powerful ones. So the
Mm.
Seal of Solomon, or Star of David, which is this six-pointed star, has this deep meaning, particularly to Kabbalists, the Cabal. And it represents this duality again that we find ourselves in, and this occultism, this control. And again, little quote there: "Be not conformed to this world, but
Mm.
be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove that what is good and acceptable and perfect be the will of God." And that's that metamorphosis as well of lead to gold, and transmuting those like denser energies, and
Yeah.
ascending to that higher state. So yeah, you've got it's like how we say in legal
Mm.
terms, you can have Florida, which is an actual geographical landmass,
Mm.
but the state of Florida is something different, and that's how they turn people,
Yeah,
off the
of
land
course.
and into a fictional state. So the state of Florida, of in legalese means without. So Florida now becomes the state of Florida, and the state of Florida means state without Florida. So again, they're getting us all into these fictions again. But the conscious state of Israel that's why it's the mothership, to the elites.
Yeah, can I ask about
That's
that?
why you get
It's
the lizard, a lizard best.
oh yeah. What do you think about this? Because I've heard this before about Israel, is that it actually refers to the brainstem, like the cerebellum, is it? And then like when you come round to the front, like the pineal gland, that's actually geographically, I think it's Hawaii, I think someone was pointing to. And Pacific is like it's that the neocortex, because it's to do with, I think it's connected to pacifying or something like that. I don't know, I've got this all wrong, but all the conflict in the war, is the Middle East, and that's actually the micro of the macro is the cerebellum. So it's like the fear, like the kind of the reptilian, the R complex, and that is in the physical world, that represents Israel as a location. I don't know if you've heard that one, but that's just throw that out there.
Absolutely possible. Yeah, no. I mean, it's all kind of, we know it's like as above, so below. Like with Dave the Shaver, we interviewed. That's why they plant yew trees in graveyards, because the top of the tree looks as it does as the roots underneath. And these like it says about the chrism oil. If I don't know if you've watched a lot of Santos Bonacci's stuff where he talks about the raising of the chrism oil. And obviously, like the way that I mean, I've got an Eye of Horus tattoo here. You can't really see it, so people tend to, she's a shill. But we have that shape within our minds, to do with the pineal gland and whatnot. And we're supposed to raise this chrism or Christ oil up through our spines, which is the 33 vertebrae. So Jesus Christ, or the Christ consciousness, was crucified. At the age of 33. Golgotha actually means skull. So again, it's this anatomical, astrotheological, astrological references to the body, So, and again to these narratives. So, Jesus was crucified at Golgotha between two thieves. So that's the pineal gland where we raise the chrism. That's the Kundalini, or Jacob's ladder, up the spine. And then, Jesus was crucified between two thieves, and the two thieves are the eyes, because the eyes are the deceivers. So when we're looking at there, and again, we're looking at, it's Plato's cave. We're looking at, I think I've got a slide on it. We're looking at these flickers on the wall, and we're thinking this is real, but it's not real. What's real is within. What's real is the kingdom within, or the kingdom. Yeah, the kingdom is this. I think it's our craniums. So yeah, something like that you just explained, John, would fit in exactly. I just went and grabbed this book while you're talking. This is a great book. And The God Man, it's called. The Word Made Flesh by George W. Curry. And it goes into a lot of scripture, and it's got a lot of references into, what Adam means. You've got Adam, which means atom. It's too much to kind of go into, but certainly goes into what Israel means, what Bethlehem means, and it's all anatomical. It's all we are these narratives and stories. We're just busy not looking this way and looking that way, because that's what this place is, isn't it? Shiny, 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 shiny. Don't look inward. Just keep looking over here. Keep looking over here, and we keep doing it. But yeah, that's a great book. But absolutely for that stuff. So yeah, definitely these themes, they're everywhere, and this slide here shows that these black cubes. You've got one out of Manhattan Chase Bank, mainly banks, or government buildings of some kind around the world. This Saturnian cube worship, Father Chronos and time. This is an interesting one. Where the two towers used to be. What have they put at the memorial center?
Oh, they haven't.
Two black cubes. Oh, they did. But yeah, it's always again in your face. And when we start to read the symbols, and all these things are seen from above as well, aren't they? As we know, like how things are designed and cities are designed. Football stadiums all look like eyes, don't they? But all seeing eyes. I don't know if people have kind of seen that. That's a bit of a deep dive. Look at football stadiums from above, because again, energy harvesting and loose centers ultimately, aren't they? Give them games and give them bread. And like you said about frequency there, that these football games. Now, all right, there's an innocence to football in some points, just men kicking a ball around, fine, there's nothing wrong with that, I suppose. But it's we know what they're doing on these energy grids and these energy centers, and there's that harvest to it. Again, this image in the far left there, that's the Corpus Hypercubus by Salvador Dali. So again, you've got that cross that turns into a cube, and Jesus is, obviously the Christ is crucified there, but above duality reality, so the black and white checkboard at the bottom. So that's what we're all supposed to do, really. Overturn the temples or commerce in our Father's temple, just as the Christ did, to raise Lazarus from the dead, to become aware of the dead fiction that we are not, and to walk upon the waters like Jesus did, walk upon the Maritime Sea, or the unholy sea, which is the seat of the pontiff, which is Papa Pope, which is obviously, the dog father of Sirius. Vati means dog, I think, in Italian, Vatican. And again, this is a serpent cult. Now, I spoke to somebody the other day, actually, and she says, oh, it was the same lady, actually, I spoke to at the Shine. She said, and what if the serpent wasn't the bad guy after all? We know that they invert everything, don't we? But the serpent has the same movement as the sine wave and the cosine waves, like. So, I mean, I don't know, but we can only try and decode this to the best of our ability.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, going back to that, Jesus on the cross, for instance, right?
Yeah.
In the previous slide, it makes me think as though it's got us to worship the cube, right? Because the cross is a T. Is that maybe also like part of the trickery, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not, whether there was a real guy called Yeshua, according to the law of one, he did sacrifice himself in compassion because he became the embodiment of compassion. So in his compassion for others, he martyred himself. Compassion leads to martyrdom. And here you see in the law of one, this is 3D choice, whether you believe that or not. And that once we've made the choice, we transcend into 4D positive time space, or 4D negative if you've made it, but it's much harder to do the negative path than it is the positive path. And that in 4D, you learn that, the veil comes down, you see self as other self. So you're so compassionate because you realize that that's you. And then you learn the lessons of compassion. But in the fifth density, you must, don't have to till you're ready, but to graduate, you have to balance that compassion with wisdom. So it's kind of like, okay, well, I have got compassion, but I've also got self-love. I'm not going to go nail myself to a cross either, dude, or chuck myself in front of a moving lorry for you. But you would in a heroic act, perhaps, and that's love, but you get me. But whether, again, some people, like we interviewed Tony Sayers, and he was like, he doesn't believe all that. This is a soul trap. It's a game for you to come down and learn lessons. And sorry, he does believe it's more of a soul trap. It's not somewhere you come because, I need to learn these lessons. So again, but who knows really? We can't begin to possibly fathom. We can just kind of deal with what the things we can kind of deal with. Really, maybe it'll all come to light in the end.
Yeah. And here's, by the way, here's the graduation hats I was talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So this is obviously linked to Freemasonry again, the Saturnian robes, and we chuck it up to the sky, don't we? It's the nod to Saturn. And I think what do they call it again? The hat, it represents a Freemason's can't remember what that word, where they mix the cement on the represents that as well. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah.
My memory at the moment. I think it's blame the heat.
I don't know what that is.
But yeah, the masonry hawk. Oh, I wrote it down. The squared masonry hawk.
Right.
I've literally wrote it on the slide. There we go. The squared cap is the squared masonry hawk. Yeah, so again, when we start to really kind of decode all of this, that's why I do love the law, because as my old mentor, the Baron used to say, a fact is a fact, and you can't argue a fact. So, we've got the Black's Law dictionaries, we're not making this shit up, as we say, etymology will show the roots of these words. And, some of them, when you're messing around with word play and stuff, all right, some people might say that's a stretch, but they do use that. They use anagrams, they use all kinds of things to speak to each other in code. And yeah. And like we've said, this is the Vatican City. They're creating all these artificial constructs and this artificial, synthetic reality, which is again why they're pushing it into transhumanism. And as we said earlier, Set was the Egyptian god of the underworld. So again, one of the big symbols that they used, wasn't it, was the rainbow, but it was the 6-coloured rainbow, which is represented, as matter, as set, as time, as well as getting people to bang the pots and pans and all kinds of strange malarkey, a few years back. But apparently we might be in for a run this Christmas. But again, it's like you were saying, if people keep going, there's going to be another lockdown, it's going to be another lockdown, it's going to be like, well, stop it, speak and spell. But again, there's still, we can't just ignore what's going on in that collective, but we have the world not in it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
That to look forward to.
But this one, obviously, the judge, as we know, when you walk into a court, they'll say all rise. So it's the language that's interesting, but they're there to collect a debt. And this is this idea, the cyclical trap of commerce, consumerism. They want us consuming. They want us like these dead, walking dead entities. I have this theory, but I don't know if it's a bit much for people's brains. But we're already dead. It's like what Neo. When Morpheus takes Neo into the construct when they're on the Nebuchadnezzar, where they come out of the Matrix, and he takes him into that construct and fights him, or starts to teach him how to fight. And Morpheus is the god of dreams and sleep, and time again. Says to Neo, you think that's her you're breathing, and that's the Matrix. It's not really, and again, this tesseract of time, which is a cube, and I think there's some kind of plane in that. Whether that's spherical or not, I don't know, but it's some kind of construct that, we can't begin again to possibly fathom unless you do a load of plant medicines, and then it starts to become a bit clearer. And again, it's like this slide, it's the 6-coloured rainbow. The 6 is matter, the answer to the meaning of life, the universe, and everything. 4 and 2 is 6, it's matter. In scripture, 666 is the number of the beast, is the number of man. Because again, this has to be real. We think that it's real, and time slows down energy into matter. It gives mass legitimacy. So again, like, this is a cool slide that that's obviously a famous album cover, Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. So who knows what's on the dark side of the moon? And you see that white light coming into that prism. So this is source, whatever that is, whatever you believe that source is, whether that's kind of coming from some kind of Saturnian frequency that creates this illusion or this flicker on the wall, because that we're living in this finite octave, but real source is infinite. It's outside of space-time, something that we certainly in this 3D construct, which is space-time. But again, I'm no physicist, or there may be some scientists going, so shut up, woman.
No, this is because that connects to stuff that I've been reading about this the black sun.
Yeah, definitely. So you've got that's why you had Chris Cornell, the Christed Cornell, talking of the black hole sun. A guy called Cullen Smith does a really cool, I'm going to try and get him on the podcast as well. He does a really good decode on the Christ, Chris, the Christ Cornell. It's always this Jesus figure, wasn't he, doing all these kind of, and obviously sacrificed with the red ribbon when he was trying to expose child trafficking, allegedly, with the Chester Bennington and whatnot. And if you look at David Bowie's last album, what I think he called it Lazarus, weren't it? Called Lazarus, the raising of the dead. And he holds up the Black Bible with the black star. So you've got the black hole sun and the black star, which is Saturn worship again. So David Bowie's last album before he died, or can argue that he didn't, because there's some evidence pointing to that, but let's not go there. He again, he was telling it's the black star, and it's same with Radiohead. Blame it on the black star.
Right.
Those that know, and we're always being
What about
told,
black old sun? Won't you come?
Exactly. Wash away the rain. Christ and Cornell.
But they from what I've said, what I've been reading about is that it's the black sun that may be the original source of this reality construct. That's the real, maybe the Christ energy, or whatever you want to call it. Maybe the different definitions of it. And then, if you want to go there with it, but it's almost like the sun that we see in the sky could be some kind of reflection, an inverse reflection of the black light. and it's actually reflected through, and it's bouncing off either a plasma belt or something up there that's actually reflecting back white light, but it's actually going in as black light. That's just something that I've been reading about recently. But
You'll have to send me that, because that fits in like with a lot of my mad thoughts as well, really, ultimately.
I've had
And again,
I've had
go
one
on,
where I believe that we're living on an eyeball. And it's like the center, like the pupil. If you imagine an eyeball, right, and then you have like the black
Okay,
pupil in
kids,
the
we have
middle.
done too much drug. I think we should just stop this interview now. It's obvious we have
No,
done
I
too
know
much
this is
drugs,
about
John.
as crazy as I'm going to go. Then we'll bring it back to reality, and
I'm only
it's like
kidding.
that's,
I'm only kidding.
and so it's kind of like the curvature, you could say, is like the dome they talk about in the script, ancient scriptures. And then that light is like the Christ light, and that's like the black hole sun, like the pupil, and it's bouncing off the top. And then we're all living on that, like what we think was the iris, that's like the land mass, But that was like my most wacky. Might cut that bit out, but
I don't know what it says about me, but I was totally I'm with it. I've gone along with that. Like, yeah, please do send me that. That totally
well, the
fits
black
in
hole
with
sun bit I'll send you. I won't send you
the
my
eyeballs
ramblings, but no, that's just my own. That was just that's just like my own That's my own musing. That's my own imagination, and because it fits in with a lot of other models that I've been looking at. I mean, it's obvious. And then you have like the like the Bible. It's like the bi-eyeball, the two eyeball, your Bible, So when I started to imagine, I've got it, I've nailed it.
Oh my God. Oh my God, this is like, we're literally gonna have to turn this into like a 10-part series, because like I could just talk about this stuff for like literal days. Oh my God, the Bible.
The bi-eyeball,
The bi-eyeball.
yeah.
The bi-eyeball.
So that's why I started to think about that. I think a lot of reality comes. It's a mixture of imagination, philosophy, science. You know what I mean? It's like I think there's going to be some truth that come through like imagination as well. I think there's like you have to sort of include those ideas, because it must be coming from somewhere. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's true, but I'm saying you have to kind of give it some kind of gravitas, like these little inspirations, these little moments, these musings that you have. Don't reject them, is what I'm saying. They have some kind of utility, But anyway,
yeah,
I thought I'd share with you my ramblings, my ideas.
And weirdly, not so random. So, again, we've got to kind of suspend that kind of disbelief, aren't we? When you do that, like you just said, then we can really get to kind of the nitty-gritty of it, can't we? And see. I mean, everything cross-references so much, and then if you're a good researcher in the end, it starts to create that picture, and pictures create stories. Still frame to still frame, and what do you get with like a projector? You get the light coming in.
Yeah,
and then the projector refracts that light and creates the flickering movie on the wall, and obviously what the still frames like that, moving pictures, they move it, so it's movement, light, reality or illusion that we kind of definitely that. And it's funny actually going back. I wrote this talk quite a few years ago, and it's funny how our site's now called Dark Matters, but that slide, like it says, a good 90% of total calculated mass is in fact dark and unobservable. The 10% is the rainbow light, which is the light. And the overwhelming majority of space within the atom is dark matter. And again, we know that the 6-color rainbow, as I said earlier, is luciferic in occult meaning, but Lucifer and God, really, or Lucifer and Jesus, kind of, again, archetypes, really, one and the same thing. Two sides of the same coin, really, when you get into that. Again, there's another guy called, I don't know if people have seen him, called Morg. He looks like a kind of gothic guy. He does some amazing videos on YouTube. YouTube. About this kind of stuff. Well worth a deep dive, but you're still winning with the eyeball stuff, John. That's the best so far.
That was like my wildest thought,
Awesome. So again, these are just like some slides that I put towards the end, really, where it's like, obviously there's Adele with a Saturn tattoo, and we know it's all this kind of stuff, don't we?
Yeah, and all this sort of
these kind of secrets, and a lot of these celebrities and men, Cher, she's got something in her pants, hasn't she? Cher's mum, Jennifer Lopez, man. I mean, I can't
really. Do you think J-Lo?
Yeah, I've seen things swinging in a satin
Are you sure
underpants.
you're not thinking
Well,
of Michelle Obama?
there's Michelle Obama. I think there's a lot more than we actually know. Megan Fox, apparently. But again,
Yeah.
this stuff just kind of gets interesting, really, because we know they've got that
Mm.
agenda that, because Baphomet is androgynous. But I shouldn't say names, really, because at law, he who makes the claim has to provide the material evidence. And I've only got images of things swinging in people's pants, so it's probably not best to go there, really.
Oh,
But yeah, it's all very interesting.
can I
But
ask
again,
about, that previous photo of like people, I'm not going to do it because then people clip it up and freeze me doing it. But the ones where they're holding like the thing over the eye?
yes.
Because I think a lot of people think, oh, they've done it over the eye, they must be Illuminati. But I think you've got to look at it in terms of putting lots of evidence together. Because they might go into a photo shoot and they don't choose the pose, like the photographer chooses the pose or the producer.
Yeah.
So it's actually out of their hands a little bit. So I see a lot of the kind of the truthers, I call them, who they'll see a celebrity doing that in a photo shoot and they'll go, right, he's Illuminati. I'm like, well, it could
Yeah, you
just be
don't.
that the photographer asked them to do that. I know my friend's a photographer. He says he used to get people to do it just because he thought it was a bit edgy, but he didn't really know the kind
Yeah,
of the occult meaning of it. So I just wanted to
yeah,
also
no,
throw that in there
I've
as
thought,
well.
I've
Yeah,
thought that as well. Just because they're
yeah,
doing it doesn't mean that they
yeah.
weren't told to do. I'm not saying that there's some kind of mechanism going on there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big Depeche Mode fan. A lot of their albums, there was a guy that decoded all of them. One of them's called Speak and Spell. One's called Construction Time. In the end, you can go a little bit mad with it. You can relate anything to anything. There is
Mm.
is it called apnea, apnea, something like that. That's the
Mm.
technical term, and I'm not getting that right. But you can start seeing everything and everything.
Yes.
And I think again, it's balance, isn't it? It's like me saying JLo's got a, but she may have, she may not. I've never got that up close and personal to physically check, which would kind of be the ultimate evidence. So yeah, we've all got to be a bit careful, haven't we? Because
Mm.
it's all a movie, it's all a set, it's all the acts are in. That's the
Yeah.
theatre. It's Shakespearean, so we just play our parts, and we come
Yeah.
down to play these parts, whether they be good or bad,
Yeah. 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 Of
and
course.
I think we just remember that and try and just. I mean, some of it's quite serious stuff. I mean, look at the stuff that John Wedge kind of deals in. That's delving into the dark, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's there, and as a
Mm.
collective, we've all ignored it. You know, and it's time. Like I said, that we don't. But
Mm.
again, yeah, the truther movement. Oh, wow. I never really liked that term anyway, the truther movement. But crikey, they're
Yeah.
all eating themselves alive, aren't they? They're eating themselves inside out. So tend to stay well clear, really. I do what I do,
Yeah.
and that's my voice, I suppose. That's me being my authentic self, man. Yeah, that's me speaking my truth, yeah,
Yeah.
and
No.
all that. But
Yeah.
I'm that's it. I stay away from it, as quite a lot of
Mm.
sensible people are at the moment, and there's so
Mm.
much backstabbing and so
Yeah.
much so much bitching and backstabbing and lies, and the wheat from the chaff out there at the moment. It is the wheat from the chaff.
Mm. No, I've had the same thing. And John Wedger said something interesting. He said he works like a submarine. He kind of works on his own. He goes down and every now and then he pops up and then he like collaborates, but then he goes back underwater again and is his own thing. And that's kind of like what I like
Yeah,
to do. I don't want to form into, I don't want to become too much of a team or like in a group, or part of a thing. I still want to maintain my own self, and
yeah,
I'll join in every now and then, but I still want to make sure that I'm not. We are the Truther Gang, and we're gonna, like I just want to, I'm not gonna. I want to be part of that. I'll just maintain myself.
yeah.
But I'll join in and then help and then collaborate and then pop back out again. I think that's kind of the way that I like to do it.
And I've had the discrediting, I've had them attack me, I've done all this kind of stuff. So I kind of learned that the hard way, really, trying to get things done in groups or work with people. And I
Yeah.
remember feeling very disheartened at one point, because I really genuinely, maybe my naivety, kind of,
Mm.
we had little tete in London. People were starting to work together, some big names and varying things to get this done and get that done. And
Mm.
we all seemed to be working to our strengths. And I was like, yeah, we've got this, before it all imploded and this person's suing that
Mm.
person. And I just thought, you know what? Wow. I got like, few knives in the back, and the rest of it, and all the stuff that gets said about you that's just nonsense. And but it's like when I said to Richard Willett one day, I said, I was on Iconic, and he said, well, take it as a badge of honour, Carly, really, you must be doing something good, else they wouldn't be trying to bring you down. So I can just look at it like that now. And you do have to develop a thick skin. But yeah, I'm the same. I have an inner sanctum. But I tend to paddle my own canoe now. Like, so, I'm just a creative person in that sense, and I'm quite passionate about it because I've been awake 20 odd years. So now it's actually all here and playing out right in front of my face. I'm kind of like just doing this proper smug, like, it's that meme with the Daenerys Targaryen when it's all blowing up, having a fag on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I know. It's almost like I actually start. When you're on the right track, because I started to do like predictions each year. I write down loads of predictions, and they've all come off, like they've all come true. It's like, you can't. What can you call me now? What names are you going to call me? Maybe Mystic Meg might be good, but yeah.
But again, this slide here, we've kind of spoken about it, as talking around the slides, really, it is when we learn to kind of be sovereign, or and again, no piece of paper is going to tell you that, but learn how to walk upon the waters of admiralty and maritime jurisdiction, overturn the temples of the lenders in your father's temple. This is the temple, Golgotha skull. Bible and scripture aren't religion. This is this inversion. Religion, again, from the Latin, to hold back, to thwart, to bind. It's a system of control. This dogmatic belief that is sent to, or is a construct to hold back the progress of our consciousness. And there's so many tricks to this, and these are just some of them. Legalese tricks for people watching who perhaps don't know. But summons is invite. An attorney means one who steals from somebody to give to another. When you get called a resident, that's the court system and our postal service, because we're all in the shipping lanes, that say you inhabit the city of London, but you just temporarily reside in the city of Manchester to do business. So resident means to do business. So again, they're always keeping you in contract and commerce. And the rule, it goes on and on. Your signature is a sign of nature, or a sigil or a mark. It is the sin, the sign wave, the cosign of time. This is why you have a sign and a cosigner, because you've got the sine wave of time and you've got the cosine. So you always need a cosigner on a legal document. Four corner rule, anything that's in boxes, it should be on a lawful document should be on a single skin, which is, if you look at your utility bills, if you look at your tax bill, everything in it will be in a box. And generally it'll be from the legal department. Well, who's the legal department? It's a fiction, isn't it? Because the legal department can't pick up a pen. It doesn't exist. John Cooper, head of the legal department, could pick up a pen. So we go for the CEO. We create private action to them. Judge, see banker, see postmaster, because I don't know if people know this, but the post offices were the original courts in this country. So this is why postal mechanics is utilised on documents. Dock of the ship, documents. I'll quickly go through all these. Minors, we're all classed as minors under a doctrine called parens patriae. You will obey your parent, and the parent is the state. And a state in quantum grammar is a contract. So that's all that we're in now, contract and commerce. Politics, this is a good one. Poly means many, tix is parasite. So politics means many parasites. Parliament means house of lies. Parlay, to talk lies to the mind. Culture, so we have a culture that's just a cult. And human means monster in Black's law. Immunity actually comes from Omnun, which was a Babylonian god, and all body parts are actually named after demons, ultimately. Now, I've not fully studied this, but it is a study. So again, we're saying all these tricks and spells out of our minds, and it really, really does go on. It really, really does go on, John.
There's a lot.
So like we said earlier, of means, it basically removes what's in front of it. You, well, who is you? You is plural. We've forgotten that. So when you get a bill, but you never really get a bill anymore. You just get a statement of account, because a true bill should come with like a VAT receipt, and a bill is something that you can actually discharge. It has the instrument usually attached to it. So like your gas bill, your electricity bill. The gyro slip is actually the instrument to discharge the debt, because we can all discharge public liabilities from our trusts, because that's the birth certificate, that's the fiction. And again, if people want to, we haven't got loads of time to kind of deep dive that, but I think a lot of people are coming around to the fact that the birth certificate is a trust, it's a bond, and they're backed by the IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund, up to $1 million. And then these bonds are traded on the stock market. You, plural, so it doesn't exist. You are the stock. And what is you? You is a docile female sheep. Yeah, meh. That's why you have the bar mitzvah for us, for you. Democracy. Demo comes from the Greek, common people or mob. Crassy from Latin, Cratia. So democracy actually means mob rule. So again, give them bread, give them games and give them bread. Shut them up. Voting comes from the word volt, to volt or emit energy at the poles or poles. This is where we get our plus and our minuses. This is why we get charged for things, because we know it's about our energy, it's about time. And this is why we discharge debt or set off. Set off.
Yes.
Saturn, set. Discharge. It's a illusion, it's an energy, and everything that we say, believe it or not, you talked earlier about our imaginations and the eyeballs, and we were talking about how whether that's a real thing or not, but just how important our imaginations are. Well, magi comes from the magician, the magi. That's what a magi straight is. A straight is a long body of water. So our imaginations, Asian means the form of. So it's the form of magic, and the I is a vowel in quantum that gets cut off. We are the magicians, we are the creators. This is why they need our signature on service agreements, contracts, because it's the signature that creates the value. It's ours. And we are the beneficiaries of the earth. We have dominion here, and that's what's taken from us, of course. Bank of the river. The bench, come over to the bench, comes from the old High German, see bank. It's all about banking. So as I say, learn a little bit of trust law if you want to, but I've 4 years of really studying this, and I've got a law degree, of course, and all that, but 20 odd years of being awake, I can summarize it in one meme: be the banker. That's the most powerful piece on the chessboard. Corporation, just to finish these last few off, because it's a lot. But it's good that the slides are up so people can have a look in their own time. Corp means dead, as we know. Orations speak, and the dead cannot speak to the living, so they need to create the person. Black's law, see person, see corporation. So Black's law, black is colour, black magic. Colour in legalese means counterfeit. It means fake. So again, just this constant spell casting and grammatical deceit. Leading up to that nicely. But once you kind of understand what's going on these documents, this grammatical deceit, this, what style of grammar are they using on these documents? You've got uppercase symbolic hieroglyphic Latin text, and then lowercase English. You've got, it might say 12 Jan. Well, what's 12 Jan? We make it real with our minds. And if they use 2 or more different grammatical structures on one existing document, makes that document void. It's an unlawful document. So it's the trickery of language. It's the Babylon. It's the Babel. And we write that down and we join in. Well, it's not. If we join in, that's our daft fault. All are equal under the law, and ignorance is no defense of it. Again, when we really start to decode language, that's the key for me. Symbols, language, understanding that grammar. Language has a mathematical interface to it, as we say. There's something called quantum grammar. People really want to deep dive beyond legalese or legalese and beyond. And parse syntax grammar, like the slide states, par comes from the Latin parts. Se means speech. So we're looking at how syntax is how words come together. Grammar, how a sentence is constructed. So, for example, parse syntax grammar. A president, president, it comes from pre, which means no. SI means simulation, and den is denture or contract. So it's funny that a president means a person who says nothing about nothing. So again, when you really decode in the 0 ones of the matrix, you know what I mean? That then this is how important language and maths is, isn't it? Because it's like we were saying about frequency and you take the study of cymatics as well, and how our spells, our words, like Documoto has intent on water, doesn't it? And there's the lady that I can't remember her name, but anyway, so yeah, it's fascinating. And again, when we understand about the language, lawyers are licensed to lie. That's why you never want a solicitor. Solicit means prostitute, and we've been over what the bar means. And they'll never take facts in fictions, and a court is a fiction. So yeah, to just kind of box things off, John. No pun intended. I'm such a nerd. We're being boxed in. They bury us in boxes, and when we understand that this is the soul trap of commerce, cash coming from the French casse, meaning broke, the cachet of the mind is cleared upon the reincarnational loop, so we forget. And this is where we get the term, cash from. Was cash till. We are there to till the land. And as we said, just to tie things up, Saturn cubed. This is this is Father Time of this perhaps holographic matrix. And we've talked about the sin or the sine waves of time. So we know that we spend currency. Again, it's all in the language. And this place has been called Earth Prison, the Lucifer Trap, the Locked Cage, the Golden Harvest Dawn. And as we stated, like an interstellar, the only thing that can transcend time is love. And things are not getting worse, they're just getting uncovered. So, let's continue to keep pulling back the veil. So, and I'll just kind of finish by telling people where they can find me, and if people are interested more in, perhaps, discharging debt or understanding debt. And we've got people in the space that set up trusts, and you can protect your assets, and there's a lot of information in there. I do lives and Zooms in there. We're going to be doing them every other week, I think, at the moment. We're going to be kicking off the law series. Richard Vobbs is going to start it with us, but we've got Pete Storm, Peter Wilson coming in. Spoke to Peter of England. Hopefully we can get Peter of England on. We've got David Edelman, Chad Mannion, Suke's going to come on. We're going to interview all these amazing minds in there, and see what remedies they've got for people too. So there's a guy who gets rid of speeding fines, things like that. So, come and check us out. It's growing, and we've just sold Katie Hopkins out at Bold Hall. So we're going to be doing Dark Matters presents and events, and perhaps working with the Shine seminars. Me and Eli have come up with a few ideas. So yeah, so it's all kicking off. And of course, we do the main podcast on Drake, Michigan at the moment, which is all the esoteric stuff. Jim McCarty, Tony Sayers, we've just interviewed, Laura Eisenhower. We've got some really cool guests coming up for that one as well. Brilliant. But again, this we are dealing in debt and debt assumption. So, in a practical term, this is what we deal with over at Dark Matters. Don't be kind of too put off by the esoteric nature of it. We do quite a lot. I love saying do. We do a lot of practical stuff. And like I say, in the game of Monopoly, stop pushing the shoe around, be the banker, start to learn trust, how trust titles work and whatnot. So yeah, so those are my details. Contact Carly or don't, your choice. Darkmatters.contact. It's a paid subscription to enter Dark Matters, but it's 11 quid, 11 for obvious reasons. We named it at that. But that gets you access to all of it. And we're going to have discounted stuff for members, which is, so say, David Edelman's courses, there'll be stuff in there, and we're going to hopefully negotiate with our partners, our trusted partners. And my goal for it in there, John, is like, that's exactly it. Trusted partners, people who have been doing this kind of stuff and who can do what they say on the tin, and people can come in and learn. It's a big forum, so you can meet like minds and yada yada. So people can either email me at Dispelling Debt. That's what the idea with like debt collectors, obviously debt set off, things like that, credits, mortgages. So you can either email me or you can join us. I mean, you could see me one-to-one, but yeah, cost you like way more to do that. And I kind of don't like doing that. My goal is I want to make it really accessible for people, know thyself and remove that chain of debt slavery. And if we can all start to do that, then that really does start to, free people, not only people's minds, but free them from that, that drudgery, that stress, that fear, that worry. We know what they're doing with the currency, CB, digital currencies and all of that, and these 15-minute cities, and you must, blah 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 blah. Yeah. What is a mandate? 2 men going out for a curry in it, like we said earlier.
Yeah, that's the way you should treat it. Yeah.
Yeah, they
Absolutely.
can't mandate to you, when you know who you are, and
Mm,
you can kind of like just get that empowerment back. I have a Telegram group. That's my Telegram group, Illuminate and Elevate. If
yeah.
anyone is struggling to find that, just email me at Dispelling Debt, because I don't know whether I'm being shadow banned or dramatic, but quite a lot of people can't find it for some reason. But email me and I'll email you back and send you
Yeah.
the links. But yeah, do kind of consider joining us at Dark Matters. We've got some, like I say, some big stuff coming up, and
Yeah.
especially with the events, members will get first access to the tickets to it. So it's like a new
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah. No, it's brilliant. Where's the first event, by the way, going to be held with Katie Hopkins?
Well, it's a speakeasy, so I can't say too much, but
Oh, okay.
in and around St. Helens, shall we say?
Okay.
I mean, I put on Spellfest last year, John. We did that in the
Mm,
private. That we put a whole
mm,
festival on in the private. So as much as
mm.
possible, we want to try and keep these events in the private.
Yeah,
However,
sure.
you know, um, perhaps if we get as they get a bit bigger and bigger, we may have to
Mm,
rethink that. But did a whole festival
mm.
and did it, but
Yeah.
I like
It'll
to.
come. Yeah, it will come. It'll happen. Yeah.
So
No, it's brilliant.
yeah, again, so people are interested in finding me, yeah, please do. But and thank you for having me. I've loved it, haven't we? We've
Yeah, no, it's been brilliant.
love to do.
And I mean, we could have talked without the slideshow because we had so much to talk about. Like, we can just go off and off, like, and away we go. But no, thank you so much for like doing the presentation as well. I mean, it just shows you how much you think about it all and you go into it. And you've presented that before, and I saw that. I watched that presentation. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it'd be really good for you to do that because it's just all embodied in that nice little piece of work, isn't it, for everyone to see? So.
Yeah, I enjoyed that actually. No one's ever kind of suggested that before, so it's nice to be able, because as well we click the slides, but I'm never precious about it. People can have that information. People can
Mm.
disagree with it if they like. That's what it is. Don't believe me. So we all got in this mess. Do your own due diligence, make your own mind up. But yeah, certainly, like, I love deep diving these topics, so it's cool. And like I said to you, John, you can show our mindsets
Mhm.
quite similar,
Mm.
because we could just talk round those slides as we did. We were like, when
Yeah.
we started, it'll be a couple of hours. 5 hours later, it was like a David Icke marathon at the
Yeah,
at the
exactly.
Aussie.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.